one from an office without the lengthy commute.
Meaning you don't have to trade quality of life for quality of workspace.
Give yourself space. Visit connectedhubs.ie or download the app to discover a hub near you.
Connected Hubs is part of Our Rural Future, a Government of Ireland initiative.
The 9 till noon show is brought to you by Letterkenny Credit Union, offering low-rate car loans with fast approval. Apply online at letterkennycu.ie or in office today.
And a very good morning to you. It's the 9 till noon show here on Highland Radio. Donald Kavanagh with you until 12 midday. It's a Friday, which means we have our Friday panel. I'll introduce you to those in just a few moments. Later in the programme at 11 o'clock, we'll have the entertainment slot. Fionnuala and Micheal both in studio, and lots to get through on that as well. And if you've been listening to ads and wondering what one particular ad on Highland Radio actually means over the past couple of days, well, you might just get your answer on the programme this morning. Do stay tuned. Lots to happen. Don't forget, by the way, as we always say, at the absolute heart of this programme are your views and your perspectives. You can text us 086 60 25,000. You can use that number for WhatsApp messages as well. You can call us on 074 91 25,000, 00353 74 91 25,000 if you're outside the dialing area. You can use social media, of course. It's at Highland Radio on Twitter. It's Highland Hub on Facebook. And don't forget too, on Facebook you can watch the programme, the Friday panel and other elements of it, interviews being done by Zoom, and you can watch those conversations as they happen on Facebook and also on our YouTube channel. And of course you can also listen online at highlandradio.com. As I said, it's a Friday, which means we have our Friday panel this morning, and our panel this morning is a long-time member of the panel, Mary Hart, broadcaster and journalist. Mary, good morning.
Donald.
We have Grania Hines, who's a member of Letterkenny Active Retirement. Grania, good morning.
Good morning.
And we have Declan Meehan, who's manager of the Milford District Resource Centre and a community campaigner. And I suppose on any discussion today, there's only one place to start, and that's the war in Ukraine. And we're all wondering, I suppose, are we past the point of no return? And what impact is this going to have, as well as the huge impact it's having in Ukraine already? What impact is it going to have on the wider Europe and indeed the wider world? Mary Hart is a broadcaster and journalist. You've been monitoring and watching and reporting the news for quite a while. What sort of thoughts do you have as you watch what's happening in Ukraine at the moment?
Well, I mean, there's no easy way to put this. This is a very serious situation for the whole world, not just for the Ukraine and all of those wonderful people that live there. In my view, this is, this spells the end of democracy in Ukraine. It's the beginning of the Iron Curtain going back up again. Let's not forget that Putin, by all accounts, appears to be someone who's unhinged at many times. He is a former member of the KGB. He's a strong, advocate of Russian influence and Russian control. And nobody expected that he would actually do what he has done, which is dreadful. This was Ukraine, like many of the satellite democracies, have been fledgling vibrant democracies. We even got to know these people in our country because they've been, able to travel the last 30 years, since all of those countries like Poland, who had all been under the control of the USSR. This is a step towards that again. This is what Putin appears by everyone else who's been speaking about what's happened, that's what he's doing. The scariest thing for me, Joel, two things, is I have a colleague that I worked with in the Irish press many years ago, and he was the Irish Times Russian Moscow correspondent during the fall of the Soviet bloc, and also, has many friends there. And he sent me a message last night from one of the editors of one of the newspapers there, who actually described Putin as having his finger, as like having a new toy, zipped up car with his finger on the nuclear button. And now that's coming from the editor-in-chief of a newspaper in Moscow, and said that the only way that they can see this being resolved on the planet, is how he put it, being saved, is that the rest of the world take action. That's, the rest of us are all looking on in absolute horror. I just don't want to take it into any long-winded way in my part, but I'm old enough to have been in the Eastern Bloc. I went across into East Germany, traveled through East Germany into Berlin, because Berlin was split in two, East and West. And I remember getting through Checkpoint Charlie into East Berlin, and thinking communism in those days, I think as a young person, communism was good, and what we were told, it was fairest and all of that. And I do remember being absolutely terrified of the KGB, or not so much the KGB, but the police, the Stasi. You could see the fear on people's faces, and they knew we were from the West. We discovered when the collapse of the whole Soviet bloc and the whole Soviet Union as we knew it, that this is an oligarchy. They build the power for themselves. They're as rich as can be. There's so many rich Russians traveling around the world. They've taken over everything. So that's what's happening, and that's what's going to happen. That's what Putin's doing. He's taking control, but it's not for a good way. It's for a very bad way.
It's an interesting contrast, because you say you were in the Eastern Bloc when the Iron Curtain was very much a factor. Conversely, I have a daughter who's in her late 20s, and just before the pandemic in January of 2020, she was in Kiev on a city break for a weekend because Ryanair fly to Kiev from Dublin. So she took a flight to Kiev, spent a weekend in Kiev, and she said to me last night that what she's thinking about at the moment, she said, funnily enough, is the taxi driver who brought her to the airport. And the tour guide who took her on a walking tour around the city centre. And then she said, she watched the news and said, see that building there? I have a photograph of myself in front of that building. And the difference is that we've gone from your experience years back, in the Iron Curtain, in those dark days of communism, to someone going to Kiev on a city break because they can, and now the fear is it's going to go in the other direction. Grania, I want to go to you because, like Mary and myself, you've been observing the news and watching it for quite a while. There seems to be something different about this one, Grania. I mean, we've seen so many sort of conflicts in Europe and elsewhere over the past decades, but there seems to be something different about this particular one. It does seem more worrying, doesn't it?
Yes, it does. And it seems to be a resurrection of a dictator who certainly isn't a benign dictator, but who has ambitions outside Ukraine. And that is the problem for us in Europe. Ukraine itself, I think we haven't given them enough support. When those Russian military exercises were coming to the south of our economic waters, I actually felt they weren't there for military exercises. They were there to do a recce of the underground cables, etc., and perhaps looking at us as an easy target to take over, because we will never be able to defend ourselves if Russia decide, okay, let's go to Ireland. And this is why I think it's very important for us to think about joining NATO. I think we should be in NATO. We are Europeans, and I think it's very, very important for us all to be in NATO. I think Ukraine should have been admitted to NATO before now. And if they had, we could go in, put boots on the ground. And I think that's what's needed. I think the sanctions will be a good thing, but they will take a while to take effect. And Putin lives for the day. He lives for his own day, when he will get to say to the Russian people, I have restored the empire. And it's very worrying. And I think we have to give every help we can. We have to push for the SWIFT banking system to be lifted from Russians' influence. And we have to do everything. And I think perhaps we may have to consider giving more help than we're doing.
I think, Grania, the idea of Ireland joining NATO and effectively abandoning the neutrality that Ireland has held since it became a republic, I'm not sure that would get through a referendum. Declan, you've been listening to what both Mary and Grania have said there. Do you think, and would you in any way agree with Grania, that there's something more that we should be doing, and maybe that should actually involve putting our neutrality to one side and taking a more active role in what's happening in the wider world?
I definitely wouldn't agree with putting our neutrality aside. I think that is something that's very valuable and gives us almost quite a unique experience in the world. I do worry, though, about the incapabilities of our defence forces, and we've seen that has been highlighted recently about how under-equipped and under-resourced they are. And that starts even with our defence forces being seriously undervalued and underpaid. And I do think that there needs to be serious work in terms of trying to build that up, not just for the defence of our own country, but in a broader sense to contribute to peacekeeping, which we have an extremely honourable record of doing since the 1960s. In terms of how much more we can do as a country, I think that we need to be at the table using our voice where we can to push for harsher sanctions. I think that is really the only tool that is open to us at the minute. I think that military intervention is something that everyone in NATO has already said is off the table. And I think that countries like the United States, the UK, France, everyone else are too afraid to actually engage directly militarily with Russia. So the sanctions that have been put in place over the past 48 hours, the question needs to be asked, why were these not put in place in 2014 when this war actually first started?
When Russia annexed Crimea.
Exactly.
Absolutely. I mean, the annexation of Crimea, the incursion into the Donbass region, all back in 2014, these sanctions should have been in place since then. The reasons why these sanctions have not been in place is because there's too much interest in European countries in having Russian money, in taking Russian resources, particularly how tied up the German economy is with the Russian economy, both on gas dependency, but also on capital dependency as well. A lot of German banks are owed money by Russian institutions, and that's why sanctions have not been harsher, because Germany stands to lose a lot. Similarly, the UK has not imposed as harsh sanctions as they should, because an awful lot of the oligarchs' money is tied up in the City of London. And a lot of that money also, coincidentally, ends up in the coffers of Tory party members through donations. So you have a very complex and intricate system of dependency, which Russia has been very careful to build since the fall of the Soviet Union in 1991, so that the European economy is quite well integrated with Russia, which makes these sanctions all the more difficult, because the German government, the UK government, and other European governments don't wish to impose unpopular sanctions that are going to affect their own citizens.
You mentioned there that Ireland should be using its voice at the table. Now, we do have a voice at the table because we are currently a member of the UN Security Council. Now, it seems to me that the only thing that most people know about Ireland's membership of the UN Security Council at this point in time is that officials had a party at the time that we were actually accepted onto it. And it seems to be the only element of the UN Security Council membership that is actually discussed at the moment. Mary, do you think maybe that we are not using that place in the UN Security Council to its fullest extent, or is work going on behind the scenes that we simply don't know about?
Of course, there's working on behind the scenes that we don't know about. And certainly Russia is a superpower, so therefore it only stands to reason that that money from that superpower will find its way into, as Declan has said, into the banks and the coffers of political parties, and into the buildings across London, and I'm sure in Dublin too that the Russian money has found its way in. We all remember the passports and Charlie Haughey's day. But certainly, yes, a lot is going on behind the scenes that we'll not know about. And certainly the Europe and America and the other superpowers are, looking at Russia at the moment, but nobody wants to start firing weapons across in through Russia. And I wouldn't advocate that in any way. Certainly, yes, sanctions need to be applied, every sanction that is possible. And indeed, they have been late in coming. But for that reason, because the Russian money is everywhere, and that's Russia being smart about what it does, like America is smart about what it does, and Europe is smart about what it does. Russia's way is its way. I really do believe we can be using our voice at the UN, but it hasn't much of a voice. It's a talking shop, and to say that we're, our neutrality wonderful and is great and all of that, we look pretty silly sitting out on the wild Atlantic with no one looking after us if we're not members of NATO. I can't see any reason why we can't be members of NATO. We weren't neutral in the Second World War. We know that. Of course, De Valera had a great notion that Ireland should stand aside. What's the point in standing aside? Of what benefit is it for us to stand aside? And our soldiers we can't say that we're neutral. They do go to war zones, but they do, I'm not saying they're fighting the enemy, but they do take sides. They do protect the people that need protecting, but they're also soldiers. They're also got guns in their hands. So for us to say that we're a nice, happy little country sitting out in the wild Atlantic, we should be, and that's where we have a voice, and that's where we have a very strong voice if we're members of NATO. And it's one of these notions that have percolated through, and we all think it's great, but I see nothing great about it.
No, could I agree?
Yeah, absolutely, Gráinne, yeah.
on that point. Like the fact we were neutral. I know my father was in charge of the medical corps in Finner Camp during the Second World War. When an English plane came down in Ben Bulben, he was first on the scene. He saved lives. And for this, he got a certificate from King George, which, because he was a rabid Republican, he really enjoyed. And he was court-martialed by the army, but he was okay. They didn't dump him out. But what I'm saying is it's a myth, as Mary says. And this thing about neutrality, it's sitting on the fence for what reason? And there is no way we can build up our forces to take on any invasion. No matter where would we get, we don't have either the numbers of people or the money to do such a thing. So we have to join NATO. I don't see any, and it's all very fine now to say, leave Ukraine to its own divorce, just because we're not in NATO or NATO is not helping Ukraine. I find it just extraordinary that we can watch what is happening, where you have a superpower attacking a small country a big country like Ukraine, but small resources. And I think they are such brave people. I think they're wonderful what they're trying to do. And of course, I cannot see them being able to resist forever.
You did use the phrase earlier, though, Grania, you did use the phrase boots on the ground. Now, part of Putin's justification for what he's doing is that if Ukraine were to join NATO, that would give NATO a power base right across Russia's border. And his argument is that in doing what he's doing, he's actually protecting Russian interests. Now, if NATO expands and if NATO puts boots on the ground in Ukraine, is that not going to, in a sense, validate what Putin is saying and give him legitimacy?
Russia have also their forces on our borders, the borders of Europe. So what's the difference? He is allowed to have forces and an army on our borders, but we're not allowed to have it on his borders. It doesn't make sense. It is not logical. And I mean, when Hungary was invaded in 1956, I remember being in school and we were up all night hoping that other countries would come in and help them, and nobody came. And the same is happening again now with Ukraine. They are part of Europe. And we are Europeans, and we should be helping more than we're doing. And I think that we're sitting on the fence. They're all scared to say, go in. Biden is very wishy-washy on this issue, I think. The Republicans obviously are not agreeing with what he wants to do. So, I mean, it is a world problem, and it will affect all of us. And we will all, I think we are all prepared to make sacrifices for Ukraine, I feel.
Declan, don't Grania and Mary have a point here in that what they're both saying is affectionately, if Ireland keeps on adopting this isolationist policy, it's not going to ultimately serve anyone's interests, least of all our own?
Well, I don't think it's an isolationist policy, first and foremost. An isolationist policy would suggest that someone doesn't interact with anything, that even would constitute something like the European Union, or doesn't sit fully at the table at the United Nations. I think a policy of neutrality is very different from an isolationist one. Ireland and Ireland's excellent diplomats abroad are very actively engaged in a whole range of very important projects, both around peacekeeping, around Irish aid abroad, and a multitude of other rights campaigns which they back as well across Europe, Asia and sub-Saharan Africa. So I think that isolationism is very different from neutrality. That's the first thing. The second thing is the key point of neutrality and the reason that we kind of adopt it. There are two main reasons. The first is to avoid conflict. And in doing so, we're protecting Irish lives. We're protecting Irish territory from attack because we are neutral. Bearing in mind that Ukraine has not been neutral. It has been trying to align itself with NATO. That's not to say that in any way that the invasion is justified, but these are the games that are played between two superpowers. NATO is not, this, fantastic alliance. There are expectations of an alliance. They are, by and large, under serious influence of the USA militarily and strategically. And so when you align yourself to NATO, you are joining a different alliance that is under a different superpower. So we can't lose sight of the fact that NATO is absolutely governed by the United States of America, and its allies are in a lot of ways answerable to them. And also there are expectations around military expenditure and about engagement in what we would class as American wars. You look at the amount of NATO members, and I can tell you it was all of them, who engaged in the Iraq and Afghanistan wars. So it's not just about defensive policies and about having someone to come to your back. There's also an expectation that you aid allies in their incursions into other sovereign states for whatever reasons. So it's not Russia that's just at this game of invading countries. We know that America has had a track record of doing that as well. So absolutely, we are in a very tragic set of circumstances where Ukraine has been invaded. But the answer to that is not for Ireland to send troops to Ukraine. That's not our role in the world. We do not have the military capability. We don't have the economic or population-based capability in order to sustain an army that would be of any use to anyone but ourselves or in peacekeeping role.
Yeah, but I don't see, I mean, we're not talking, and I suppose we've been sidetracked somewhat with our own discussion on NATO and whether we should be members or not members. The more serious issue today is that Europe cannot, to just go back to Jack Lynch's phrase, stand by and watch something happening and then say, well, it's not our problem. The NATO has been, it's a superpower in another way, but certainly, Russia can use that excuse. Putin can use that excuse as well, that NATO was the reason why he has to look after his borders. That's not the reason why he's attacked Ukraine and has gone in an onslaught of all-out war on a country that has become a democracy. He doesn't want it to be a democracy. He wants it to come under his own oligarchy. He wants to recreate a superpower that has far more countries than it has at the minute, which is Russia. He wants to claim back what was the USSR, and he wants to do that by force. I don't want the discussion this morning to get sidetracked with whether Ireland should or shouldn't be a part of NATO, but it'll make no one bit of a difference when it comes to how we envisage what we can do ourselves. But together we can do a lot, together with all the rest of Europe and with America. And being a part of NATO gives us that opportunity to do something, not to just say, oh, well, we have to stand by and watch. And sanctions, we can't do anything with sanctions. It wouldn't have one bit of an influence at all or any effect whatsoever on Russia. And I don't think Putin is, at the moment, he's that kind of person. I don't think he really cares about sanctions, because let's not forget what it was like under the Soviet control, under the USSR. People were, I'm not going to say starving, but they had nothing. They hadn't the freedom to buy things. Even when I was in East Germany, I remember people looking at what we were wearing, and their eyes, was like they wanted to buy Western clothes, which is the same kind of clothes that the people in Ukraine are now wearing. That they have the choice, but they didn't have the choice. So it's a control that Russia had. So that's what we have to look at. These are our friends. These are our European neighbours, and that's what we should be considering at the moment. How can we help? What can we do? And we should really be, sort of looking towards, whatever America, whatever Europe decides, we're full square behind that.
We're going to take a short break, and we're going to take a short break. Back with more discussion after this.
June 2022, August 2022, January 2023. Is that what you're hearing when inquiring about the delivery of a new vehicle? Guess what? That's not the case at iMotors. Call in today and choose your new car with immediate delivery available across our full range of Nissan and Kia models. Drive away in your new 2022 car. Call iMotors in Letterkenny and Malin on 07491 34567.
Attention all tractor and forklift owners. Donegal Tyres in Donegal Town is a leading supplier of agricultural and solid forklift tyres in the northwest, with a huge range available at competitive prices. Donegal Tyres can help you choose the correct tyre for your application, and we will come to you, so no downtime. Check out DonegalTyres.com or call 07497 21482. That's Donegal Tyres, Donegal Town, where you'll get a great deal.
Dimmer mé pelan seo nervhí mé óg, an chéad blúna eile ó cótal in Michigan. Said atá gais le bheith a gcóirde ná smaoinemh go tapa, bheith gníomhach, agus sulta bhaint an sclónda nach fistit céir atá mac roit. Ach tá oibriú a bheireann daoine óga a chráirú, agus cairir le daoine chamad sa bholta I gceist freisin. Beidh go leor scileann agat a dtí a cairir leat a bheith idir gcóirde. Beidir nach gáil dit céir díd go fáil, ach tá sí domhan. Déan iartas le bailíocht a ghlacha mar Ilíní Gordy, faoin 6 mórta ag publicjobs.ie, an Garda Síochána, is tusa an difriocht.
Don't sleep in and miss the very latest beds and mattress offers from dfibeds.ie, Ireland's leading online bed and mattress retailer. You'll get a comfy Irish-made mattress, upholstered base and headboard from an amazing €229. Check out the full range at dfibeds.ie. Delivery free and guaranteed to you within 7 working days. DFI Beds. Sleep well, live well.
Highland Radio Time Checks, brought to you by Letterkenny Shopping Centre, the centre of shopping in Donegal. Free parking and shopping all under one roof. Letterkenny Shopping Centre, bringing you the time at
29.5 minutes past 9 o'clock.
The 9 till noon show with Letterkenny Credit Union, now offering mortgages from €40,000 to €600,000 with no hidden fees or transaction charges. Letterkenny Credit Union, 9102127.
It's the 9 till noon show on Highland Radio. It's our Friday panel. We have Mary Hart, broadcaster and journalist, Gráinne Hines, member of Letterkenny Active Retirement, and Declan Meehan, who's manager of Milford District Resource Centre and a community campaigner. A lengthy discussion there on Ukraine. Just some of your comments that have been coming in. That lady is right. I said that Russian ships were checking out those wires, the link between America and Europe. I also wondered, did they leave something down there like a bomb or a device to listen into conversations? Tell me how long Russia takes us over. Guarantee you about 2 to 3 hours. Where is Putin going to stop, asks a caller. Now, the caller says Russia never annexed Crimea by force. They didn't have to fire one bullet. The people voted en masse to join Russia. Why is there no mention of NATO trying to surround Russia, provoking them into war with Ukraine? Another caller says if Putin tries to take over Ireland, what use is neutrality to the Irish people? We should join NATO while we have a chance. Another caller says, I'm livid listening to these ladies. I hope ageism or sexism doesn't get in the way of them putting their boots on the ground. How dare they suggest Ireland's young are sent to get slaughtered on foreign soil? Neutrality is our saving grace. No to NATO. Another caller says, how come no one puts sanctions on Israel? Why can they bomb a small country and the world turns a blind eye? Another caller says, back in 1991, when the Soviet Union fell, the US and NATO agreed not to spread into Eastern Europe. Then George Bush located missiles in Poland and Romania. If you kick a dog and keep kicking that dog, sooner or later, that dog will snarl and bite you. Sanctions are a very dangerous instrument that may lead to World War III. Ireland should never be in NATO. Ireland is neutral. Another caller says, Ray, Ukraine, perhaps we need to remember how the US and UK went into other countries such as Iraq, Afghanistan, Libya, and all in the name of protecting people from themselves. The hypocrisy is amazing. I mean, and there are more comments in that vein that we'll get to in a few moments. But Gráinne, I'm going to come back to you. I mean, it certainly seems that people are taking an interest in this, but there are so many views, and a lot of it would seem to suggest that whatever the way of tackling this is by way of sanctions or places at the UN Security Council or whatever, people don't seem to believe that military involvement and the West getting involved, using the West as a sort of a broad catch-all term, that the West doesn't get involved in a conflict at this point in time in Ukraine.
Yes, I know that that's what they're thinking. But at the same time, like, for example, another problem with Ireland is we're not in the Schengen area. So this is causing a problem now for people coming from Ukraine for visas, etc. The problem with Belarus is already in the clutches of Russia. They are completely dependent on him, and he has no intention of letting them become a democracy. I know a lot about Belarus. My daughter-in-law is from Belarus, and when she needs a visa for Ireland, even though she's married to an Irishman, she has to go to Moscow. She has to spend a certain number of weeks there until they check her out, and they have to bribe the officials to get the visa. So all these problems are for the people in the Schengen area as well. So I feel that Ireland, we need a wake-up call. We need to look at ourselves and see, are we Europeans or are we not Europeans? And I feel that I didn't particularly say we wanted boots on the ground, but what I'm saying is we have to do as much as we can. And if it comes to the point where the whole of Ukraine is now will be under Russia, and that these people have no freedom under Russia, you can see yourself in Russia, in St. Petersburg and Moscow yesterday, there was plenty of Russians demonstrating. They didn't want a war, a lot of young people. 1,700 people have been put in jail yesterday under the Russian command. So what I'm saying is we have to take a wake-up call. We have to be pragmatic, and we also have to be very sympathetic. We have to open up our borders to the Ukrainian people now who are fleeing, and we have to look after them. And I'm sure all of us I have a house myself, which could house some of them. And I think we all need to, support them as much as we can. Nobody wants to see people going in, an army going in. But if that's the way it has to be, that's the way it has to be. That's the way I feel.
Declan, I want to give you the final word on this. In terms of, you've obviously made it quite clear that your belief is that sanctions and discussion and dialogue are the way to go here. Are you confident that they can work?
No, and I don't think that they are the only thing that we will be looking at. I suppose kind of in the coming months, it depends how what Russia's plans are once they actually take Kiev. There is talk that maybe they will be happy with, setting up a puppet government, which is no good, obviously. But I think that I would be very concerned about the effectiveness of sanctions. I'd be concerned because a lot of European countries are very reticent to use the most severe of those sanctions because of their own self-interest. I think the other broader issue that we're looking at here, and one of your listeners has brought it up, is that there was an agreement back in 1991 that NATO would not expand into former Soviet republics. In 2008, at the NATO conference that took place in Bucharest that year, George Bush invited Ukraine, or said that Ukraine and Georgia should be invited into NATO, and Putin invaded Georgia that summer. Like, this is all being played out at the behest of two kind of almost two superpowers, two alliances that are at loggerheads. And the difference here is that Putin is absolutely willing to put his money where his mouth is in terms of invading Georgia and invading Ukraine. But NATO, even though they have made overages to both Ukraine and Georgia previously, are not willing to actually give them the support that they need to defend themselves. And I think that what has happened here is that Ukraine has been used as a pawn by both Russia and by America and NATO, and that they are ultimately the victims, at the behest of both of them. So it's a huge tragedy and a failing of geopolitics. It's a failing of NATO's expansionist policy, because they've not acted quickly enough to actually bring Ukraine into the fold if that was their intention. So it's a failure of America not being able to put their money where their mouth is. And now we have a war which America is very, very reluctant and cannot see any sign of them getting involved in, particularly because, remember, it's an election year in America, and the American public do not want another war. So all those factors come into play. Sanctions, we hope would work, but I think Putin is basically laughing in the face of Europe and NATO at the minute. I want to give some of your comments. Sorry, very, very, very quickly, Mary, if you would. Grania, if you would.
Basically, let's not forget, Putin has gone straight in with no reason to go straight in other than for his own benefits. But if I could leave the last sort of word, that came from the Nobel Peace Prize winner to, my friend in the Irish Times. He's the editor-in-chief of Novaya Gazeta, and he said, only a global anti-war movement can save life on this planet. That's coming from Russia last night, from a Nobel Peace Prize winner. So that's where we should be thinking, a global anti-war. I'm not advocating, nor I'm sure anybody else is advocating that we go in to fight a war. Nobody wants a war. Putin wants a war.
I want to give you. I want to give some of your comments before we move on to another point of discussion. Caller says, we bought an apartment some years ago in Turkey. Before we knew it, the entire block was being bought up by wealthy Russians. Within months, many were refusing to pay many of the standard bills for the group in the block. That forced others to sell off below market price just to want to get out. Caller says, Putin is no different to Hitler. Hitler started off the same way. Then he wanted control of the whole world. The only difference is he didn't have nuclear power. This needs to be handled with kid gloves because this could end up in another world war. Another caller says, no, we should not be a part of NATO. And a caller says, so Russia doesn't want Ukraine to join NATO because they feel its borders will be threatened. The West wants Ukraine to join so it can keep an eye on Russia. Caller asks, who is right? Now, I want to move on to another issue, and we know that this morning the HSE and Department of Health and the National Treatment Purchase Fund are jointly going to launch the latest initiative to tackle waiting lists in our hospitals. We know post-pandemic there is a huge crisis with waiting lists, and we had figures earlier this week from the Irish Hospital Consultants Association which warned that particularly in the Celta group, which Letterkenny University Hospital is part of, if there isn't a major improvement now, then we're going to be facing a major problem for at least the next decade. I want to ask our panel if they have any confidence that what's going to be announced this morning will make any serious inroads in there. I want to go to you first, Grania, in terms of the waiting list announcement we're going to see today. We don't quite know what's going to be in it yet, but you could at this point nearly guess. We've seen so many of these before. Is this one going to be different?
Well, I'm hoping that it will be different. I am a half glass full person, and I really feel that they are making a massive effort at this time, and they have to, because we are at crisis point. And I think in particular, this new idea of having 6 regions perhaps will help to solve this particular type of problem. Of course, the main thing is staffing for these for the implementation of this plan, the staffing of nurses and doctors. So we have to look at that seriously. We have to pay our nurses better. We have to give them perhaps, I know when the young nurses went away in the 80s, as a lot of them did, some of them went to the hospitals in England and there was accommodation for 3 months. And if they hadn't found a place in that time, there was more accommodation for as long as they wished near the hospital. We did have that at one stage in Letterkenny, where we had good accommodation for nurses. That has slipped and it is no longer offered to people. So we need to look at all this sort of things, and consultants and doctors, when doctors qualify, young doctors, interns, I really feel they should be asked to spend at least 3 years in Ireland before they emigrate. They will get good training. We have very good consultants who can train them. They can then spread their wings. That way you would have a constant pool of doctors in the hospitals, because we have to face up to it. To implement any of the new plans for the health board, we need staffing. Now, I'm concerned particularly about older people. And I know that, for example, now older people and people with dementia are going into our acute hospitals, into LUH. There is no community hospital for people with dementia. There is no staff in the other hospitals who are trained to deal with them. And they go in there. I know patients who have been in for a week, 2 weeks, haven't even been given a shower because the staff isn't there. The latest thing the hospital have done is to ask the carers of these people who care for their loved ones for 24 hours to go into the hospital when they're in hospital and look after them, shave them, shower them, etc., and be there for 7 to 8 hours. Now, this is ridiculous. That is turning them into staff, and they're still only paid a paltry 219 a week to do all this work. So there's a lot of things that need to be happened, and I think there is plans for community hospitals, step-down facilities, and facilities for patients with dementia.
They are advancing the new community hospital, which is going to be located there on that ground,
yes,
roughly between the Little Angel School and where that assessment hub was. There is a community hospital going there, and it's going to take time to construct that. Declan, as a community campaigner, Declan, obviously I'm sure in the course of your day-to-day activities within the community, health is an issue that's coming up again and again and again. Are you confident that maybe we may see a corner turned now?
I would like to also be a glass half full kind of a person when it comes to healthcare reform in Ireland. I think that, look, in my work, we come across this all the time. I'm also chair of the Community Health Forum down here, it's William Mulroy Community Health Forum. One of the biggest issues that we have, I think, with retaining nurses and doctors isn't really actually around pay, and it's more to do with conditions. People are opting often to work in Altnagalvin as opposed to Letterkenny because the working conditions are actually better in Altnagalvin for a nurse or for a trainee doctor or whatever that is. I think that the reason that conditions are so poor in our health system is because there's so much pressure on it. There's a lack of capacity in the system, simple things like bed capacity. I think what we're going to see today, from my understanding, is that there's going to be the announcement of 3 elective surgical hospitals being opened in Galway, Dublin and in Cork. If we have solely those hospitals in place that are only doing elective procedures for people, that is going to clear a huge backlog of people on the waiting list. And it is, in fact, the only way that we're ever going to get on top of this, where you have designated hospitals that are able to really whisk through things that people are on waiting lists for, that the regional hospitals such as Letterkenny, Sligo, or even Galway don't actually have the capacity to do. So that is absolutely of paramount importance, and hope that that actually comes to fruition. I know that there seems to be a little bit of cherry picking within the Financial Care programme to give the impression that overall reform and progress of reform is being made. I think that ultimately what we see here is we have a Department of Health and we have a Health Service Executive, the head honchos within those two places, who are very resistant to these reforms and changes. And that is the reality of the situation. We've seen that over the past, 4 years since this was implemented and this committee was put in place. And I think what we need to do is we need to take the reforms actually out of the hands of the Department of Health and the HSE and put this directly into a sub-department of the Department of Taoiseach, so that that can be managed independently of people who have a huge vested interest in keeping things the same. The everyday employees of the HSE want these reforms. They want to see the backlog and waiting lists to be cleared. They want to see capacity within our health system increased. We all want to see proper primary care centres built within our communities. But that is not going to move so long as we have people who are resistant to change in charge of reforming their own practices and their own structures.
And Mary, if I can go to you and expand on that, because we heard, for instance, Stephen McMahon this morning from the Irish Patients Association saying that what they want to see more than anything is one person put in charge with this. He made the point that the national vaccination programme was under the charge of one person, Brian McGrath. The buck stopped with him and it was his responsibility to get it done, and he got it done. Does the same need to happen here?
Of course it does. I think like Declan and Grania, I would like to think the glass half full, but I don't have any confidence in this happening at all. I suppose I revert back to why Sláinte Care came into existence in the first place. A government or an election promised that the equality within the health service would happen, that everybody would have access, and there wouldn't be people with private medicine, private care getting in to have surgery quicker than someone who didn't have it. And of course that wasn't going to happen because the resistance, as Declan mentioned, from those that have their own little power bases in the HSE and the Department of Health, resistant to any change whatsoever. And of course, any promises that are made at election time should be declared null and void after the election, because they never happen. They're just, everybody thinks, believes it at the stand, but it doesn't happen. I am old enough to remember, and have actually worked as a journalist covering like the Northwestern Health Board meetings, that they were there. Yep. They knew their area. The local councillors were in it. The nurse, the doctors, the hospital manager, and the buck stopped with whoever happened to be the chair or the CEO or the head of the Northwestern Health Board, as it looked after Donegal, Sligo, Leitrim, I think it was, and the headquarters in Monaghan. Yep. The creation of the HSE was like one of these consultant notions that was developed within, I'll say the Department of Health. We should have it privatised or whatever. We should put a different unit in charge. Wrong decision. It has never worked. It has been fraught with problems. And the dismantling of that is the first thing that should happen. And certainly moving back to regional control and having, hospitals and Lifford Hospital was a great hospital, and they started winding it down until it had nothing, which is a scandal in my view. I was born there, and I know an awful lot of elderly people who were very well treated there. And, it was a maternity hospital as well. There's another issue as well, which one doctor pointed out to me many years ago. When you went to the doctor and there was something wrong with you, obviously you went to the doctor, something wrong with you, but when he could identify, because they're highly trained, and the doctor said, he would ring the hospital and say, I have a patient here, this is what's wrong with them. And the person in that ward, the doctor in charge of that particular, illness, would say, yes, we have a bed here. Now every single solitary person goes into HSE before they can get into any room. And as we know, why is that still happening?
And they have to go to the emergency department in order to do it.
It is crazy. It's crazy. The number of people that I know in the last couple of weeks who've been sitting for hours upon hours upon hours waiting for a bed when it's bed free.
True. Absolutely. I'm going to take a very quick break. Back after these.
Brian McCormick, Sports and Leisure, Main Street, Letterkenny. New O'Neill's Donegal range in-store and online. Home jersey available in many options for men, women and juniors. New Donegal goalkeeper jersey out now. Donegal O'Neill's Harlem range with new jackets, hats and snoods to help you show your colours. Look the part, play the part. In-store or online. Click and collect on bmcsports.ie.
This Saturday night, Highland will bring you live coverage of Donegal against Tyrone in Division 1 of the National Football League. Donegal will be hoping to bounce back after their defeat in Kerry as they clash with neighbours and All-Ireland champions Tyrone. Join the Highland team from 7:15 for the build-up and full match commentary. Highland's coverage of Donegal action in the National Football League is brought to you by Highland Motors Letterkenny, main dealer for Citroën cars and commercials in Donegal. Citroën Berlingo vans are now back in stock. Order yours today by contacting Damien at Highland Motors.
This summer, holidays are go with Jet2 Holidays and Atlantic Travel. So go explore your sunny favourites with hundreds of free child places available. Ask the experts at Atlantic Travel about your next Jet2 holiday by calling 074 912 6193. And book now with just a £60 deposit per person. Jet2 Holidays. Package holidays you can trust. Subject to availability and conditions.
The Three Amigos, Jimmy Buckley, Robert Mazzell and Patrick Feeney are coming back to Donegal. See this amazing show live at Jackson's Hotel Ballybuffet, Monday, February 28th. Tickets priced at €35 and are now on sale at the hotel reception and Ticketmaster.ie. This award-winning show is not to be missed.
It's exciting times at Hillside D-Max in Letterkenny because they're moving, but not too far. This Monday the 28th, their new kitchen design studio will open at Curralees on the other side of the mountaintop roundabout. The studio will showcase the latest kitchen, wardrobe and slide robe designs with D-Mac's renowned attention to detail and exceptional quality. Hillside D-Max, in the heart of your home since 1994, at Curralees, Mountaintop, Letterkenny from Monday the 28th.
Caller says, I got a call this morning claiming to be a charity in Moldova seeking financial support for the people in Ukraine. Clearly it was a scam. If you want to help, I suggest you give to recognised charities in these areas such as the Red Cross. Caller says, our support for Ukraine has been lukewarm. 4 of our MEPs voted against a motion condemning Russian troops build up on the Ukrainian border 2 months ago. One MEP issued a statement yesterday blaming UN provocation for the invasion. Caller says it's obvious that both your female panellists haven't served in any defence forces. As an ex-defence force member, when serving overseas, your neutrality, you are impartial in negotiations. Now, a caller says Ireland's sons fought for a foreign country before. Are these people forgetting we already did that? Can anyone remember their names today? Now, in fairness, I would suggest that they can, and I would also suggest that Mary Hart, your late father, is one of those most responsible for ensuring that people remember the names of those who died in 1916 and other years in World War I.
Yeah. You know, these men were not conscripted, between 1914 and 1918 in Ireland. They willingly, went to war because they believed what they were doing was right to defend their small nations. And, as we know, the sadness of that was that we had our own conflict in Ireland, our own war of independence coincided with the First World War, and the soldiers who came back were spat at and were not welcomed anywhere. So there's families had to mourn them in silence until we airbrushed them virtually out of history. And certainly then they are remembered now, thankfully. And I know my late father played a significant role in having that happen. And, I myself met so many families who were, relieved that they could actually speak with great courage and pride about their fathers or grandfathers or brothers, or well, they wouldn't have been brothers by the time they were remembered. They were all, such a long time before that. But anyway, that yes, soldiers are remembered in Ireland. We were a nation of soldiering abroad, joining up in armies all over the world. When the Irish went to America, they were to the forefront of every army that was being called up upon in Canada, in Australia, and New Zealand. So the fighting Irish is there, even in the American War of Independence, so I mean, we're not known to be sitting back doing nothing.
Time is against us, I'm afraid, this morning. Gráinne, I want to give a quick word to yourself with regards to Letterkenny Active Retirement. You're very much involved, and the group is very much, if you'll pardon the pun, active at the moment.
Yes, we are very active, and we are a friendship club, and we our main aim is to have a better life for older people, and particularly the healthcare of older people and home care packages. And that is our aim, and it's very, very difficult. There are so many obstacles when people go to get home care. There are so many crazy things that are offered to them, like half an hour, in the morning to get somebody up, washed, dried, shaved. Crazy, crazy stuff. And you have our carers who are really underpaid and are under terrific stress because there is no respite at the moment. Since, as you say, Lifford Hospital was downgraded. And when will this community hospital be ready? It will be 2 to 3 years at least. And in the meantime, you have these people who are in dire need. There are people living on their own who are not coping. And the care packages are very limited and very hard to get and very complicated. And I think we need to improve on that big time. And the other thing for older people is the loneliness and the isolation is amazing. I mean, we don't think about it really, especially people who are living in the town or in urban areas. We do kind of understand when they're living in rural areas. We think, okay, they look isolated because their houses are isolated. But there are a lot of people in towns who are very lonely, and this is where active retirement and groups like that come into effect. I would really ask the council to reignite the Older People's Council and the Age Friendly Alliance, which seem to have disappeared off the earth, or maybe we're just not getting the communications from them, that they would communicate with older people like ourselves and find out what is needed on the ground and what can help people. And I'd just like to thank all the people who in the hospital who are very kind and good to older people, but they don't have the time, they don't have the staff. And you're put in, I was myself in there for a week, and there was no shower facility for me all week because there was no space, and the shower room was packed with equipment. And this is tragic for people. Like when you go into hospital, there should be like there are mixed wards where you have people with dementia and people who have medical and surgical needs, and it's not good. It's not good at all at the moment. So
and hopefully, Grania, that's a message that will get through to the hospital and to those who are running it. And that, I'm afraid, and I always say it when I do the programme on a Friday, it is the fastest hour of the week. We've been beaten by time, I'm afraid. Mary Hart, broadcaster and journalist, Grania Hines, member of Letterkenny Active Retirement, and Declan Meehan, manager of the Milford District Resource Centre and also a community campaigner. It's been a fascinating conversation. We've got several perspectives, and as always, it's been an education to hear all of you speak to us this morning. Thank you very much indeed.
Thank you.
The 9 till noon show is brought to you by Letterkenny Credit Union, with monster loans available up to €60,000 for all occasions. Visit letterkennycu.ie.
Win the VIP matchday experience with Cadbury. Enter online for your chance to win. The luxury hotel with the chauffeur meeting brings a football legend, topped off with a pair of side boots.
With thousands of vouchers also to be won, search Cadbury. Win a day in their boots. T's and C's apply.
Ireland is leaving diesel behind, and Kelly's Toyota is leading the way with our incredible range of self-charging hybrid electric cars. We've amazing offers, including contributions and trade-in boosters. And with 46 years of experience here in Donegal, you can trust us to help you on your electric journey. You'll never take a wrong turn with Toyota, Ireland's best-selling car brand. Visit Kelly's Toyota Mount Charles or Letterkenny today. Toyota, built for a better world. Terms and conditions apply.
For confirmation and First Communion, see the great selection of suits, casual wear and footwear at Watson Menswear, Letterkenny. Top brands, including 1880 Club, Lyle & Scott, Farah and Diesel. Also, Tommy Bow footwear, and all at great prices. Whatever the fit, whatever the style, confirmation and First Communions are covered for less at Watson Menswear. Open 7 days a week on Main Street, Letterkenny, and at watsonmenswear.com. Also, great end of sale bargains still available.
Enjoy your bath.
I will. Now. Lovely. What's that splashing?
Oh no, Desi! Something's leaking! Oh, there's water everywhere. There's a pipe leaking through the ceiling. Oh,
With Allianz Home Insurance, you get emergency home assistance at no extra cost. So when those unexpected moments happen, we'll be here to help. Visit allianz.ie for a quote and get 20% off your home insurance. Allianz plc is regulated by the Central Bank of Ireland. Standard acceptance criteria, policy conditions and minimum premium apply.
Highland Radio weather updates with Ireland West Airport. Thinking of a sun holiday this summer with the family? Fly to Alicante, Malaga, Faro, Mallorca and Milan with Ryanair. Ireland West Airport, you're flying.
And that Erin tell us that cloud will increase through the morning, bringing patches of drizzle to Donegal later. It'll stay dry and pleasant elsewhere. Milder this afternoon with temperatures of 7 to 9 degrees Celsius, mostly light to moderate southwesterly breeze, but fresh to strong southerly winds will develop later. Tonight, cloudy and overcast, some patchy light rain and drizzle, mainly in the west, with lowest overnight temperatures 4 to 7. Strong southerly winds developing again. Tomorrow, mostly cloudy and windy, patchy rain and drizzle, good dry periods. Highest temperatures on Saturday, 9 to 11 degrees Celsius.
Homeland Fuel offers, keeping you warm for less. 40 kg premium doubles or easy flame coal, buy 10 bags, get one free. Hardwood logs, 2 bags for €10. Flow gas, £25 gas cylinder, only €27.99. Shop in-store or online at homeland.ie.
Sometimes it's just bad luck, but sometimes it's negligence. From minor bumps to life-changing injury, every accident has a story. Time to call McElhenney and Associates. They'll assess the situation, advise on solutions, and lead the way if any litigation is to follow. From motor accidents and workplace accidents to slips, trips and falls, call today on 074 917 5989 or find us online. Let's get you started on the road to recovery. McElhenney and Associates Solicitors, Stranorlar. How can we help? In contentious business, a solicitor may not calculate fees or other charges as a percentage or proportion of any award or settlement.
With the onset of different variants of coronavirus, it is vital that your business, office or school has the most up-to-date air purification device. McDade's Bathroom Plumbing Tiles introduce the Daikin Air Purifier. It eliminates 99.9% of coronaviruses in under 3 minutes. Ideal for residential settings, offices, classrooms and waiting rooms. Priced at €495, it's a great investment. For more details, contact McDade's Bathroom Plumbing Tiles Buncrana. We're only a phone call or email away.
New this week in Home Store and More. All bath mats are half price. But better hurry, because when all our half price bath mats are gone, they're gone. Also, all our plant pots and garden planters and all our frying pans are still half price. But when all our half price plant pots and garden planters and all our half price frying pans are gone, they're definitely gone. Order online before 2 p.m. for next day delivery, or drop by your local Home Store and More. Home Store and More. A happy home.
Milford Tiles, wood flooring and bathware. Milford Retail Park now open. Large range of wall and floor tiles on display and in stock. Over 70 different laminate floors to suit every pocket. Tilers and wood fitters available. New bathware showroom now open. Milford Tiles, wood flooring and bathware. 083 091 0707.
Live, on air, online and on the Highland Radio app. This is Highland Radio News.
It's 2 minutes past 10. Good morning. I'm Catherine Gaffney. Intelligence services are claiming that around 450 Russian troops were killed during the first day of the Kremlin's invasion of Ukraine. Explosions and air raid sirens have been ringing around the Ukrainian capital again today, while there's been heavy fighting in the eastern cities. The UN's estimating 100,000 people have now been displaced. Britain's Defence Secretary Vladimir Putin's failed to deliver on his objectives on day one. Ben Wallace says the Russian president's actions are deeply irrational.
I certainly think he is gone full Tonto, if that's what what I said the other day and talking to some soldiers. No one else in their right mind would do what we are seeing on our telescreens today. No one else would impose their will on another sovereign country with all sorts of concocted conspiracies.
Hospital waiting lists will be cut by almost 20% by the end of the year under new government targets. It's expected around 1.5 million people will be added to waiting lists this year because of COVID backlogs. The new €350 million plan aims to ensure 1.7 million people are treated and removed to bring the list to under 600,000. Health Minister Stephen Donnelly says people requiring treatment need to get quicker access.
The wait causes huge anxiety. A lot of the time patients are waiting in a lot of pain, and a lot of time while they're waiting they're getting sicker or their condition is deteriorating. In Ireland today, too many people are waiting too long for healthcare.
The Dáil has heard that high house prices in Donegal and a failure by government to address derelict and vacant properties is forcing people into homelessness and to flee the county. That's according to Donegal Deputy Padraig McLaughlin, who was speaking last evening during statements on the Town Centre First Policy. He says it's unacceptable that properties are let lie vacant in the midst of a housing crisis. Deputy McLaughlin says there is simply nowhere for people to live.
If you talk to Threshold, the Simon community, they cannot secure a house to rent in North Donegal. If somebody who is on the housing assistance payment, waiting to receive a council house or a public house, if they're told by their landlord, listen, I'm going to have to sell this property in 6 months, they can't secure a home. So you have good, hard-working people who present and saying, I'm actually homeless. I'm going to be homeless.
It's hoped that sporting facilities in Strabane will be upgraded in the near future. A motion was passed at the latest sitting of Derry City and Strabane District Council calling for floodlights to be installed at the arena pitch in Melvin Sport Complex and for the transfer of land at Lisnafin playing pitches to the council for further development. Councillor Micheal Boyle brought forward the motion. She says the next stage will be to ensure the necessary funding is in place to carry out the works.
And that will be the next hurdle. I'm happy. I've asked Council to give us a timeline on when this can happen. The floodlights at Melvin Stadium was part of the overall project, but it just wasn't completed. So it is an ambitious portfolio. I would be confident and happy going forward that will be a key element, and I'm sure Council will deliver on that.
Good sunny spells this morning, but cloud will increase during the afternoon, bringing patches of drizzle, becoming milder with afternoon temperatures of 7 to 9 degrees. That's it for now. We're back with the headlines for you at 11 o'clock. Until then, good morning. The obituary notices for Friday morning, the 25th of February. The death has occurred of William Lafferty, Hillhead, Castlefin. His remains are reposing at his home from 4 o'clock today. Funeral from there on Sunday at 12:30, going to St Mary's Church, Castlefin, for 1 o'clock requiem mass, followed by burial in the adjoining cemetery. The house is strictly private, please. The death has taken place of Seamus Devaney, 17 Port Hall Lifford, and formerly of Carrigadawson Rafo. Funeral leaving his home on Sunday at 12:15 for Mass in St Patrick's Church, Murlog at 1 o'clock. Interment afterwards in the adjoining cemetery. The house is strictly private to family and close friends only, please. The requiem mass can be viewed live via the parish webcam. The death has taken place in Boston, Massachusetts of Rose Gibbons, formerly of Ohadrina, Rosnakill, Fanid. Funeral mass tomorrow morning at 11 o'clock in St Columba's Church, Massmount. Burial afterwards in Massmount Cemetery. The death has taken place of Daniel McElhenney, Dan, Main Street, Clonmany. His remains are reposing at his late residence. Funeral leaving his home tomorrow morning at 22:11 to St Mary's Church, Clonmany. Requiem Mass at 11 o'clock with burial afterwards in the adjoining cemetery. Family flowers only, please. Donations in lieu, if desired, to Friends of Letterkenny University Hospital, care of any family member, or Comiskey's funeral directors. House private to close friends and family only, please. The funeral mass can be viewed live on churchservices.tv. The death has occurred in Cambridge of George Hampson, reposing at his daughter's residence, 20 Glenview, Clonbeg, Buncrana. Funeral tomorrow morning at 10:15 for 11 o'clock Requiem Mass in St Mary's Church, Cockhill, Buncrana. Interment immediately afterwards in the adjoining cemetery. The death has occurred of Angus Friel Lawrence, formerly of 77 Ashlawn, Letterkenny. His remains are reposing at his parents, Sally and Thomas Lawrence's residence, 37 Allendale, Ahilly, Buncrana. Funeral from there tomorrow afternoon at 12:15, going to the Star of the Sea Church, Desert Agni, Linsfort, Buncrana, for Requiem Mass at 1 o'clock. Interment afterwards in the adjoining cemetery. Family and close friends only, please, from 10 p.m. to 10 a.m. The death has taken place of Gracie McBride, Gracie Wikiwaira, Middletown, Derrybeg. Her remains are reposing at her late residence. Funeral Mass will take place this morning at 11 o'clock in St Mary's Church, Derrybeg, followed by burial in Maharagallan Cemetery. The wake is private to family and close friends. The funeral mass can be viewed live on the Chat Pubble Wura webcam. For more details, including any family health guidelines for wakes and funerals, please go to highlandradio.com.
And you're listening to the 9 till noon show on Highland Radio. It's Donald Kavanagh on the programme this morning. Just a few of your comments that have been coming in. We must never give up our neutrality, never, says a caller. Yes, we must give help in every way to help Ukraine. We're just a small country. We must remain neutral. So we are not standing by. We can help take people into the country and help in other ways. Where were the sanctions in the US and all their NATO allies who invaded other countries? All this pontificating by holier-than-thou supporters of the US is so hypocritical, says a caller. For God's sake, it's utter folly, slaughter, murder to try and put troops on the ground against such modern lethal weaponry. Ireland must remain neutral for the sake of our young people. That is the only way to save the world, and that's the rosary. We must heed Our Lady's messages. So because this lady had an experience behind the Iron Curtain, Ireland should give up its neutrality and put boots on the ground in a foreign war, which we would have, and maybe we should hear from the veteran world over who suffer from PTSD on their experiences. One of our panellists, Grania, told the listeners that she could support Ukrainian refugees, and this caller asks, has she any room for our Irish homeless? And if we have to send frontline troops and boots on the ground, will our leading vocal feminists call for equal gender quotas as they do for other areas of life? What people need to do is wake up to Putin. This will not end with taking Ukraine. When successful, he will move further. Economic sanctions will not be enough to stop him. We need military action, so says another caller. And some other of your comments that have been coming through. Let's look at these ones. Heard on RTE News that the HSE were going to try and start charging individuals €5 an hour for home help. If this is the case, what are people's thoughts on it? I think if charges for home help were to come into being, I think that would reach an awful lot, I think, of protest, I would have imagined. Caller saying, Donald, we booked a family holiday to Turkey thinking after 2 years of COVID we all deserve a break. How safe is it for us to take that break now for St. Patrick's weekend? I think they're decisions that every individual will have to take. Does anyone know if the Tyrone game is on TV this weekend? I do not know myself. I would imagine it is available somewhere, but you could check the various services. It may be, I know certainly there's the GAA have its own streaming service. Now, whether it's actually on terrestrial TV and available for free or it's being streamed on an alternative platform, I do not know. Another caller says Donald, masks should be in place. The virus is not gone. We should continue wearing them. It's up to the individual as of Monday, and I think people will make their own choices, and I do suspect a lot of people will choose to continue wearing masks in public places. Comments made about the hospital by Grania, one of our panellists, over the course of the discussion, and caller says, why does the hospital need so many managers? When matrons were in charge, things were better. The head sisters of the wards knew if they had beds free for the patients. You didn't have to have bed managers and any questions like that. People were admitted and they went straight to the ward instead of going through the emergency department. And certainly I had the experience. I was referred to the hospital by my GP several years ago. I had a bout of fairly serious food poisoning, and I went to the GP, and the GP said, you're going to the hospital, and the GP more or less said, be on medical 3, I think it was, or medical 2, be on medical 2 at 2 o'clock this afternoon. And I went straight to medical 2 and I was admitted, and I was seen to there and then. And certainly it meant I didn't have to go to the emergency department, and at this point in time everything goes through the emergency department, and one of the priorities surely will be to try and get people away from the emergency department. Now, it's 13 minutes past 10 o'clock, and if you are a regular player of Highland Radio NCBI Radio Bingo, then you will want, of course, to get your numbers for today. So without any further ado, I will advise you to grab your books, grab your pens. I'll hand you over to Kevin.
It's time for NCBI Bingo on Highland Radio.
It's Friday, February 25th. You're playing on the yellow coloured sheet. The reference number is S20. It's game number 8. The numbers are 50, 78, 48, 30, 85, 60, 68, 87, 43 and 27. Phone your claim to 9104833 before 8 p.m. tonight, leaving your name, contact number and the name of the shop where you purchased your book. Get all your NCBI Radio Bingo information at highlandradio.com.
Need a new part for your Ford car or van? Why not call to OMS Auto Parts in Buncrana? With a massive stock of Ford parts, you're sure to get the part you need. Free next day delivery on orders over €50. Call 074 9361924 or shop online at omsautoparts.ie.
Nutrius XL Yo with Lamb and Nutrius Yo with Lamb Crunch are both formulated to ensure a vigorous lamb and excellent milk yield. Avail of our lambing season offer: 25 kg bags, buy 10 get 1 free, and €10 off per tonne in bulk. Available at your local Homeland store. Offer until March 31st. Visit nutrius.ie for full nutritional information.
Save up to 25% on your shopping at Kelly Centra in Letterkenny. In store, you'll find a huge range of great tasting own brand products, fresh produce, including fresh meat and frozen foods, along with all your day-to-day needs. Say yes to savings every day at Kelly Centra, Mountaintop, Letterkenny.
Inflation-busting offers from Lidl help make your money go further. With products from across our incredible range, you could make your family a week's worth of delicious, nutritious meals and round it all off with a big Irish Sunday roast. That's a whole week's shop for a family of 4 for less than €76. Follow Lidl's Inflation-busting challenge online at #Lidl Inflation Busters for further savings tips and offers. And save even more money in store with the Lidl Plus app. Inflation Busters at Lidl. More for you. Products shopped February 15th. See Lidl.ie for details.
Ireland's Queen of Country, Philomena Begley's 60 Years in Showbiz concert is coming to the Clanry Hotel Letterkenny on Friday the 4th of March with special guests Ray Lynham, Mick Flavin and Aidan Quinn. Tickets for this show to remember are on sale now from the Clanry Hotel on 9124369.
Highland Radio Time Checks, brought to you by Letterkenny Shopping Centre, the centre of shopping in Donegal. Free parking and shopping all under one roof. Letterkenny Shopping Centre, bringing you the time at...
And the time on Highland Radio is 17 minutes past 10 o'clock.
The 9 till noon show with Letterkenny Credit Union. Mortgages now available with a personalised service from your local and friendly credit union. Email mortgage@letterkennycu.ie.
More and more parents, we're told, are looking for help and support to deal with abusive children, and this has been referred to as the unspoken side of domestic violence. The CEO of Parentline is Aileen Hickey, and she joins us. Aileen, good morning.
Good morning, Donald. How are you?
Very well indeed, thank you. Aileen, we speak a lot about the violence that can be perpetrated on children by their parents and by others, but not so much perhaps on the violence that goes in the other direction, and that's something you believe is on the rise.
Well, I'm not even sure if it's on the rise. I know the reporting is certainly on the rise. Unfortunately, it is one of those areas that parents don't like reporting on because, it brings a kind of a sense of shame to a lot of families because, they never thought this would happen in their home. And just going back on something you said there, it is the unspoken end of of partner to partner. But, this is child-to-parent violence, where essentially the parent ends up fearful in their own home of their own child. So it's in a domestic setting, so it is another form of domestic violence. Now, we saw an overall rise in our calls in 2021 of about 47%. Our calls went up to over 6,000 calls. But the biggest spike was in calls where parents were reporting concerns in this area, and that's anger, aggression, and abuse. And actually, and when I say abuse, it can be physical abuse, but it's not always kind of, the 16-year-old young fella throwing his mother up against the fridge door or anything like that. It can be a number of abusive behaviours in terms of, like verbal abuse, emotional abuse, manipulation, controlling behaviours, abusing property. So it can kind of run the gamut. But essentially, I suppose at the heart of it is the fact that the parent ends up afraid of their own child in their own home. The abuse is generally directed at the mother. About 86% of the calls that we would get would be in relation to where the behaviours are directed at the mother, and generally the majority of the children who deliver these behaviours, the majority of them unfortunately are boys, and the age range, the biggest age range would be in kind of the 13 to 17-year-old category. Now they can be younger, and we would also get a lot of calls where parents are concerned about abusive behaviours from 18-year-olds and upwards, in other words, adult children who are living in the family home, which unfortunately is an issue because of rising rents and all the rest of it. So unfortunately, there are more adult children now living in the family home for much longer or returning to the family home, and it makes for a very difficult environment for everybody.
And we have in the past, we have discussed in particular abuse of parents by adult children, very often in terms of adult children trying to secure money or trying to force parents into changing wills or things like that. And, in this instance, though, as you said, we can be talking about, children who are much younger and effectively children who are, in every sense of the word, children.
100%, Donald. I mean, as I say, the biggest age range would be in the 13 to 17-year-old category. We would get plenty of calls where the child might be 9, 10, 11. So, we generally kind of try and deal with this when they're, we have a program called the Nonviolent Resistance Program, which is something we put in place for parents to try and help them to deal with these kinds of behaviours and to try and control what's going on in their family home. Essentially, the Nonviolent Resistance Program is a program that's put in place to try and de-escalate the behaviours. At its essence, what it does is it tries to change the reaction, first of all, of the parent to the behaviours that are being directed at them, and that in turn evokes a change, a behavioural change in the child, because we all know we're all kind of used to reacting in the same way, and they know how to push your buttons and they know how you will react. So this is essentially about trying to take this down a couple of notches, to slow it down, to stop kind of pouring oil on the fire, that sort of thing. Is a program that we put in place that is it's 1 hour a week done over the phone on a one-to-one basis, and it lasts about 8 weeks. Now, I will say, unfortunately, we have a waiting list for the program, and we've had a waiting list now since probably the middle of or actually early 2020. So while we have about 30 of our volunteers are trained in delivering this NVR program, and it's a fantastic program, but unfortunately we can't keep up with the demand, because the demand for the program went up fivefold in 2020 and has stayed at the same level. The parents that do go on the program and that are committed to doing the program, they, with the feedback we get, is fantastic. It does have amazing results. Now, I will say, it's not a magic bean and it's not a magic wand, and we certainly wouldn't promise, to fix the situation in every family home. But it's a really good program where the family is committed to following through with it.
And we know that in cases particularly where the children concerned are younger children, the child and adolescent mental health service should be available to address those issues. The problem we have, as was highlighted in South Kerry, but what South Kerry did, I think, really more than anything else, was it just showed what was a deficiency in CAMHS services right across the country that's been there for quite some time. I mean, it's an issue that we were discussing here with our own local TDs, and the shortages and the waiting lists a lot longer before the South Kerry incidents came to light. And when you have a situation where children who may need that child and adolescent mental health service intervention and they can't get it because the waiting lists are too long, that certainly isn't going to help this situation.
100%, you said it all there. I mean, I will say all services and all organisations are very stretched, and you can't put everything at the door of the pandemic, but the pandemic certainly exacerbated a lot of issues and a lot of behaviours in relation to children, who are suffering themselves from anxiety, and it's difficult enough being a teenager, but being a teenager in a pandemic, was very difficult, I think, for a lot of families and for a lot of teenagers, and you have to give them something there. Unfortunately, as you just said there, for children who are referred to CAMHS or referred to other services where there is often a long waiting list to even get an assessment, it's very difficult, because when a parent is seeking help, they're not seeking help in 6 months' time, they're seeking help now. So as I say, even with our own waiting list, we're very conscious of the waiting list. We try and make sure no parent is on the waiting list for, kind of more than 5 or 6 weeks. And again, that depends on their availability to do the programme and the availability that we have of the volunteer to match the time that suits the parent. But, we're very conscious of trying to support the parent as quickly as possible, because we understand that when a parent is seeking help and seeking support, that, seeking it now. And as I say, the difficulty with child-to-parent violence is that, it's not something that, that parents generally want to discuss, at the next family gathering or with their neighbour or at the school gate, because, that there is a sense of shame, and there's a sense of, a loss of control. Parents feel kind of that they feel powerless. And a lot of times I think parents feel that they've failed in a certain way, that this has happened in their own house. They haven't, but that feeling of failure is there, because this is something that is very difficult to deal with.
How important is it that it is being discussed? As you said, more than 6,000 calls made to your helpline last year, and maybe the fact that it is being talked about, maybe the fact that people are prepared to report it, suggests that there will be more discussion on it at a societal level, and that perhaps will help break down just some of the barriers that are there to talking about it.
Again, 100%. So, even speaking with you about it today, and your listeners who may be dealing with the, situations like this, knowing that it is something that goes on, and that, that they are far from on their own, that, that it's happening in thousands of families all over the country. I think that's a big help, because again, don't feel like this is something that has just happened in their family and that has to be kept as a secret and all the rest of it. So, like everything, the sooner you ask for help, the better you will feel. But, so reporting, or seeking support or seeking information or seeking guidance in relation to it, is extremely important. The Parent on the website is a very good source of information on child-to-parent violence. There's testimonials on it from parents who have been dealing with this situation, who have been through the programme and who've come out the other end. And some of these parents were very sceptical at the beginning, because, a one-to-one, 1 hour phone call once a week, even if it is for 8 weeks, I think a lot of parents, wondered, would that really do the trick? As I say, I wouldn't make the promise that it is going to work for everybody, and there is a waiting list. But, if anyone goes onto the website and looks under child-to-parent violence on our website, and they can read all about the Nonviolent Resistance Programme and what it does, and who it helps and how it helps. And again, I think the important thing there is it also shows them that they're not on their own in having this situation occur in their family and dealing with this.
And do you want to give us the details of that website, how people can access your services?
It's parentline.ie is the website, and our own phone number is it's Dublin number 0187 33500, 0187 33500. Our lines are open Monday to Thursday from 10 in the morning until 9 in the evening, and on a Friday from 10 in the morning until 4 in the afternoon.
Aileen, thanks very much indeed. That's Aileen Hickey there, the CEO of Parentline, speaking about this very important issue. And it's good, as you say, to get this discussed, and hopefully someone maybe that's in that situation will have heard this morning, and that'll maybe give them the impetus to seek some help or to discuss it with somebody, and maybe that could prove to be the start of the breakthrough that they need.
Absolutely, Donald. So thank you very much for giving me the opportunity to talk about it and get it out there.
It's our pleasure, Aileen, and thank you indeed for speaking to us this morning. And as Aileen said there are no magic wands, there are no magic beans, and this isn't going to get resolved overnight for anybody just by making one phone call. But maybe that phone call can be the start of a process that will lead to a major breakthrough. Just some things just to talk about before we go for a break. Yesterday, a group of property owners went to Dublin to protest outside the Dáil, the Housing Department and the forecourts against the deficiencies that they see in the proposed revised micro-redress scheme. They met with many TDs and senators. The general feedback they received was that the TDs and senators thought that the new scheme being offered was going to represent 100% redress, when in fact it doesn't. They say not only was it shocking to hear that so many TDs and the senators believed that the scheme was going to be better than it actually was in their view. They said they were surprised that there wasn't more push in having quarries inspected for products or material being used to produce blocks, and they say it seems the fight isn't over for so many people who will not be able to avail of the current proposed scheme if it goes into legislation. And as we said yesterday, and we know there was a discussion at Donegal County Council level yesterday as well, there is most certainly a long conversation yet to be had about Micah, and this story is going to be very much on the agenda for quite some time. The Rotary Club offers a free confidential paper shredding service today at Letterkenny Shopping Centre in association with United Shredding Company, all for a donation to the nominated charity, Donegal Down Syndrome Association. The USL unit is situated on the right hand side of the car park near the entrance. It's there from 10:30 until 12 midday, so they'll be opening in the next couple of seconds. They're open until 12 midday, so if you've got papers you want to get shredded, come and get this done and make a donation. Caller says, why isn't there a slip road being built to access the Port Bridge from the Ramelton Road? The ground is there. All traffic is being directed onto the roundabout, and this is calling long tailbacks on the Ramelton Road. I can't see the logic of not doing it, especially when the work is going on there at the moment. I can certainly see the point that the caller is making there. The only thing I would say to that is, how do you regulate the traffic if you build a slip road onto, say, onto Port Bridge? If you don't build another roundabout there, what can then happen is that you just get a huge build-up on the slip road that will back onto Ramelton Road anyway. So if you have, because you've got a fairly lengthy stream of traffic normally coming from, say, out the Port Road, and the roundabout, does something to let people get onto the road. So maybe if you had a slip road going out there, perhaps I'm wrong there, I'm just thinking off the top of my head, but you'd have to be very careful in the traffic management plan you implement as a result to make sure that you just don't move the tail back from the roundabout up to the new slip road. But certainly it's an interesting point, caller, and it would be very interesting to hear what the council is doing here. Now, the caller says, I haven't heard mention or talk in recent times about the Bunagee Link Road and a transport hub for Letterkenny. Well, I know there's work ongoing at the moment on the Neil T. Blaney Road, kind of opposite the Joe Bonner Road entrance, the new Joe Bonner Road. There's work going on the other side of the road there. I think that may be for the transport hub. I do stand to correction on that, but I think that's actually the transport hub. That's what they're working on for there, and I'll seek clarification on that. In terms of the Bunagee Link Road, it's still very much on the agenda. It's part of the 2040 development plan, and money has been allocated on a couple of occasions now for exploratory works, and there's been sort of 10,000 here and 20,000 there for exploratory works and surveys and so on, and they're having maybe a preliminary look into what CPOs might be necessary and what land acquisition might be necessary. But certainly in terms of construction work on a bridge at Bunagee, that is some way down the road yet. It's 31 minutes past 10 o'clock. We're going to take a short break. Back after these.
For great fuel deals, contact Gortley Sales and Hire. Large sacks and trailer loads of logs. Also briquettes, coal, kindling and gas with free delivery locally. Contact Gortley Sales and Hire in Letterkenny on 9126276.
At Tesco, we're always looking for ways to make shopping easy for everyone. That's why we're giving one lucky customer the chance to win a brand new Nissan Qashqai. To enter, simply complete
Delivered with the same local, trustworthy service of your credit union.
We had a lengthy discussion on the Friday panel with regards to the situation in Ukraine. I'm joined on Zoom by Bishop Alan McGuckian, who's the Bishop of Raphoe and the Chair of the Bishops' Council for Justice and Peace. Bishop Alan, good morning.
Good morning, Donald. Thank you for having me.
It's our pleasure. The situation in Ukraine, Bishop Alan, it's making us all realise maybe how much we actually take peace for granted.
This is the first time since 1942 that another country was invaded in Europe. So that's for 80 years we have not known the like of this in Europe, and it really brings it so close. This, of course, is what many countries have suffered all over the world, even up until this very day. But now it comes very close to us, and we in many ways believed that there would never be war like this again in Europe, and here it is upon us. It's horrendous.
On the programme yesterday, we spoke to Oksana, who's a Ukrainian native who's living in Letterkenny at the moment, and certainly in your flock you'll have people from Ukraine as well as people from neighbouring Poland, from Romania, from other countries, and they, I'm sure, are really concerned and worried at the moment, and they'll be looking to you as their pastoral leader for guidance.
Absolutely, and I don't know, I really want them to know, and I'm so glad to have this opportunity to speak this morning, that in all of our churches we are praying very much in solidarity, especially with those who are suffering. Pope Francis named this really well when he spoke about the diabolical senselessness of violence, and he asked the whole world to recognise that and to pray, all believers and non-believers, everybody, and especially on Ash Wednesday. There's a thing that Jesus said about some demons that can only be driven out by prayer and fasting. So next Ash Wednesday, the Pope wants all believers to pray and fast, really in solidarity with everybody in this conflict, seeking a peaceful outcome. In our cathedral on that night, we're going to have a special rosary and examen at 8:30 that everybody's invited to, and we would love to reach out to people from Ukraine and from that region who would come and pray for us, and indeed from Russia, who would come and pray with us on that night. And I'm really especially asking people to pray and fast on Ash Wednesday very deliberately, knowing that we're uniting our fasting with our prayer for peace in Ukraine and for some solace and comfort particularly for those who are suffering totally innocent in this situation.
And it is your belief, as part of your faith, that those prayers may be answered and that those prayers may make a difference.
It absolutely is. God is made it. The mystery of God is all the more challenging, but all the more necessary when we find ourselves utterly unable to cope. And certainly when something like this breaks out in our world, our vulnerability and our lack of ability to sort it all ourselves becomes very clear to us. And it is in situations like this that I think, albeit that it's in the darkest moment, that God is a solid light. God is our stronghold and our refuge. And when we turn to him, we do find a way through.
There is a lot of talk about the political discussions and the political interventions, but is it your belief that the church can play a role here, the Catholic Church, other churches, and indeed your sister churches in the Eastern Orthodox tradition, that the churches too may have a role in terms of uniting people and in terms of inspiring and leading dialogue?
Absolutely. Like this fundamental belief that indeed all people of faith have, but particularly we Christians have, is that God is our Father. God looks with love on his children in Russia and on his children in Ukraine. They are brothers and sisters. We are brothers and sisters. And consequently, violence one against the other is, as the Pope says, a diabolical thing. And I know that Christian leaders will be saying that and are saying that. I know that the Pope is certainly speaking out into the world for it, and I do hope that our brothers and sisters in the Orthodox churches are saying the same thing. We are brothers and sisters. We are children of the one Father, and this killing each other is diabolical.
As you said, next Wednesday is Ash Wednesday, and just to repeat, there will be a special rosary and service in the cathedral on that evening, to which you're particularly hopeful that those from Ukraine, Russia and the surrounding area will attend.
Absolutely, and that's at 8:30 that night. We are, in all of our churches, we will be praying at masses and services every day. And I know all the other Christians and all the other believers who will be listening in to me will be uniting. Like, we need to unite our prayers to the one God, and indeed stand with everybody, believer and unbeliever, hoping and longing and praying for an end to this.
Bishop Alan McGuckian, thank you very much indeed for speaking to us this morning.
Thank you, Don.
That's Bishop Alan there. He's the chair of the Bishops' Council for Justice and Peace. And of course, Bishop Alan is also the Bishop of Rafo. It's 17 minutes to 11 o'clock. We're going to take a short break. Back after these.
If the medical experts get it wrong, everything changes. From misdiagnosis or delayed diagnosis to surgical injury or even poor treatment. All have physical, emotional and financial consequences. We're here to help. So if your treatment didn't go according to plan, speak to our experienced medical negligence team at Micheal and Associates. Find us online or call 074 917 5989. Micheal and Associates Solicitors, Stranorlar. In contentious business, a solicitor may not calculate fees or other charges as a percentage or proportion of any award or settlement.
Let BizPrint the Printers help with your business marketing and printing to get your 2022 vision off to the right start. BizPrint the Printers, Port Road, Letterkenny. Call 91777955 or see bizprint.ie.
Are you involved in a digital project in your town or community? Would you like to share in a €100,000 prize fund? The .ie Digital Town Awards shine a light on the achievements of local towns for digital projects in health, education, tourism and community. To enter the .ie Digital Town Awards, visit weare.ie. Terms and conditions apply.
This Saturday night, Highland will bring you live coverage of Donegal against Tyrone in Division 1 of the National Football League. Donegal will be hoping to bounce back after their defeat in Kerry as they clash with neighbours and All-Ireland champions Tyrone. Join the Highland team from 7:15 for the build-up and full match commentary. Donegal action in the National Football League is brought to you by Highland Motors Letterkenny, your main Renault and Dacia dealer in Donegal, with limited stock of the new award-winning Renault Arcana E-Tech Hybrid, blending sleek coupe lines with a sporty SUV look.
Highland Radio weather updates with Ireland West Airport. Ronaldo, De Bruyne, Cavani. You can now see both Manchester teams in action with Ryanair's twice weekly service to Manchester. Ireland West Airport. You're flying.
And looking at the weather forecast from Met Éireann, cloud increasing during the morning, bringing patches of drizzle to Donegal. A milder day though, with afternoon temperatures 7 to 9 degrees Celsius, mostly light to moderate southwesterly breezes, but fresh to strong southerly winds will develop later, particularly in the west. It'll be cloudy tonight and overcast with patchy light rain and drizzle, mainly in the west once again. Lowest temperatures 4 to 7 degrees Celsius, strong southerly winds developing. Tomorrow Saturday, mostly cloudy and windy with patchy rain and drizzle, good dry periods with a few brighter spells. Highest temperatures 9 to 11 with strong and gusty southerly winds. They'll hit gale force at times on the coast.
The 9 till noon show is brought to you by Letterkenny Credit Union, offering low-rate car loans with fast approval. Apply online at letterkennycu.ie or in office today.
Well, yesterday on the programme we spoke to Councillor Jerry McMonigal, and indeed I must actually offer an apology to Councillor McMonigal because I referred to him as the Vice Chair of the Regional Health Forum West of the HSC, not realising that earlier this week he had in fact been elected Chair. So mea culpa on my fault, Councillor Jerry. I apologise, and congratulations on becoming the Chair. Now, but we discussed the deficiencies in the diabetes services and the fact that the diabetic waiting list in Letterkenny University Hospital has grown to a very worrying degree. And today we're hearing the announcement of the initiative to tackle waiting lists with 3 designated elective hospitals. However, all 3 are below the Dublin Galway line, and Paul Gillespie joins us. He's a member and spokesperson for the Donegal Diabetic Association. Paul, good morning.
Good morning, Donald. Thanks for having me on.
It's our pleasure. Paul, obviously you would concur with everything that Jerry McMonigal said yesterday, but you're not as happy with what we've been told today about the designated elective hospitals.
Yeah, unfortunately I didn't hear Jerry on yesterday. I missed Highland yesterday with work, but yes, I did hear quite a bit of the show this morning, and yeah, it's just I think that one of the main problems for waiting lists has been total mismanagement by the HSE. And again, like, they continue to try to develop everything below the Dublin Limerick line. Sailcha has been, that's definitely underfunded, but Letterkenny University Hospital is the worst funded hospital, I believe, in Ireland. Letterkenny continues to be the 6th busiest hospital in Ireland, but it's still funded. I believe it's down around the 30 in line, that all the Dublin, Cork, Limerick hospitals funding are all way above Letterkenny, even though it continues to be so busy. But just whenever, if the HSE would enact a lot of political decisions, it would, because over the last 10 years, we have been canvassing and meeting and running to Dublin and getting political agreement. Like in November 2017, you may remember, which is over 4 years ago, that the Minister for Health, Joe McHugh, they announced that a second endocrinologist was being appointed to Letterkenny. This has never happened. So the complications of the chronic disease, it is type 1 diabetes, is adding and adding to the waiting lists. Right? But then you have so many management, but all the resources aren't following the management as well, because unfortunately over the last year, the podiatrist in the hospital was off on maternity leave, and because of COVID, obviously she had to go off early. But Letterkenny Hospital did not replace the podiatrists. So all the Donegal patients that have gone into Letterkenny Hospital with anything to do, serious complications on the lower leg and feet, they've had to be transferred to Galway for their care. But when they get to Galway and they get the treatment, they couldn't be transferred back to Letterkenny that day or the next day because there was no podiatrist. So they ended up having to stay in Galway for a week to 2 weeks. So it's really appalling mismanagement that is causing the massive waiting lists.
We know that in the days of James Riley, when he was the opposition spokesperson for health before he ever became minister, the big phrase that he used time and again was, the money follows the patient. And that was supposed to be the basis upon which a new health service was built. Fair to say that's never really happened.
No, and actually funny you should mention James Riley, because I was just reading back through my notes over the last 10 years. And in 2016, we met the Minister for Health, James Riley, in Dublin, and he acknowledged that Donegal was the worst funded, worst resourced hospital and county in Ireland. And he actually started the plans then to have the shared centre of excellence for paediatric diabetes. There was going to be a shared centre of excellence between Letterkenny and Sligo, that there would be one endocrinologist consultant in Letterkenny with a building, that all the resources will be there, and the second one. And that was actually down to, he had initiated a model of care, put a lot of heads together, come up with what was going to be the best plan, and as you rightly said there, he wanted to have the money following the patient. So he acknowledged and he put in place, started the work to get in a shared centre of excellence. And again, this has never happened. He then was taken over by Leo Varadkar, and it was actually Leo Varadkar who signed off on the model of care. And in the model of care, it clearly says that for paediatric diabetes, they're supposed to have 2 paediatric endocrinologists for every 300 children, which means in the entire Northwest, there should be 2 paediatric endocrinologists, one in Sligo, one in Letterkenny, to do the shared care, but there are none. There is no paediatric endocrinologist anywhere in the Northwest. And actually on the shared centre of excellence, again, you mentioned there, the Dublin Limerick line, all of the shared centres of excellence, all the centres of excellence, the 5 centres of excellence in Ireland are all below Dublin Limerick line. Sailcha does not have a centre of excellence to look after paediatric diabetes anywhere in the whole Sailcha group, which is appalling. And again, that's mismanagement by Sailcha, not just the HSE.
Have you ever had an explanation, be it from Leo Varadkar or Simon Harris or Stephen Donnelly or any official in the HSE or the Department of Health, as to why that Letterkenny-Sligo plan did not come to fruition? Because I will remember interviewing you at the time. I remember you on this programme at the time, and you were quite complimentary about it, and your view at that time was it was a long time coming, but thankfully it's here. Now, sadly, more than 5 years later, it appears it never actually arrived.
No, it never actually arrived, and what happened then was even worse. That at that point we actually had a consultant in Sligo who was starting to cover some of the care into Donegal, but because there was no sign of her actually being made an endocrinologist, which she was. So she, whenever the Centre of Excellence in Limerick came to fruition, she moved there. So, and it then took 2 years for the HSE to find a replacement into Sligo, and because the doctor in Sligo was having to also cover the care into Letterkenny for paediatrics, because there's none in Letterkenny, they have a paediatrician, but they don't. In Sligo, the doctor was employed as a paediatrician with a special interest in diabetes, even though the model of care and all the government guidelines says it should be a paediatric endocrinologist. So it's only may be a matter of time before she gets offered a role that she should be. And again, just speaking of the Centre of Excellence, in Letterkenny we helped fund and done a lot of fundraising many years ago to have the gatehouse solely designated to diabetes. So that has been now the diabetes at the gatehouse now for quite a few years, but it's not quite big enough, but it certainly would have been a brilliant starting block for the shared Centre of Excellence. Sligo have pushed on quite a bit over the last few years, so Sligo seems to be advancing, whereas Letterkenny is falling back. Sligo now has two adult endocrinologists, but they have less of a catchment area than Letterkenny. Letterkenny only has one, was supposed to get two, but never got it. Yeah. So it's terrible mismanagement. And I say, if the second adult endocrinologist was in Letterkenny, at the minute, the government guidelines is that for every adult with diabetes, they should be with type 1 diabetes, should be reviewed by an endocrinologist every 6 months. We used to fight to try and get the waiting list down from 2 years. It was 2 years, right? But then, unfortunately, because the second endocrinologist was never appointed, and then COVID happened, now the waiting list now, I believe, is close to 3 years. So because the patients aren't getting looked after, and diabetes as a chronic disease, they're developing more complications, which is making the waiting list bigger.
And that was exactly the point that Jerry McMonigal actually did make in the piece we did yesterday. That was the core of what Jerry McMonigal raised as well at the Regional Health Forum this week, that waiting list now is over 2 years, and it's having a serious impact on people's health, and it's having a serious impact on people's progress. Paul,
so it's not just diabetes, like it's to do with cancer care. Absolutely everything in Letterkenny Hospital has been seriously affected now by chronic waiting lists. So, and as I mentioned already, Letterkenny is one of the busiest hospitals in Ireland, and yet it's so badly under-resourced. So I honestly believe that Letterkenny needs to be immediately made back to being a regional hospital and the proper funding. Why is Letterkenny class designated in such a low esteem that it gets so little funding? So the whole system in Letterkenny and Donegal needs to be properly resourced. They need to get a massive input of the funding. And that is what will sort the waiting list properly and forever. To set up that they think that people from Donegal should travel down to Limerick, Cork or Dublin to get the urgent care they badly need, and it's just crazy.
Yeah. Paul, thanks indeed for speaking to us this morning, and from your point of view, that fight obviously goes on, and hopefully, this new waiting list initiative will take those points on board, identify where those deficiencies are, and perhaps yet the centres of excellence that have been promised so often will eventually emerge. But for the moment, Paul Gillespie, thanks indeed.
Thank you very much.
Okay, no, Paul. Looking at some more of your comments before we go for a break in the headlines at 11. Caller says, can anyone explain what this war is about? I'm watching it, but I'm lost. There are competing perspectives, obviously, from the point of view of opponents of Russia. They believe that Vladimir Putin basically wants to re-establish what was the USSR, but re-establish it as a single Russian country. The supporters of Putin will say that Putin is invading because he fears NATO's expansion, and he fears if Ukraine were to become involved with NATO, that NATO would then have bases right on his border, and that's something that he believes would threatened the security of Russia. Yesterday on the programme, we spoke about a person at the bus station who may try to scam people out of money. Caller says, I think I met this person a while back at the bus station. 3 times he approached myself and 2 others. He then went on an Ulster bus that had around 30 ladies on a day trip to Letterkenny. When he told them his story, most of them gave him money. An hour later, the man was stopping people on Shipkey Street. He didn't appear to be a person in need of one-off help. Caller says, if the government continues down the green above all path and we reduce fertiliser use like they're suggesting, I'm sorry to say that will reduce food availability. It won't just be expensive. About 15 to 20% won't have been produced at all. Caller says, and we discussed yesterday fair trade. Caller says fair trade is important, but you have to get the big main shops on board, and I absolutely agree with that. And certainly we see it in terms of produce like bananas, tea and coffee and so on. We spoke yesterday to Joanne Butler from Changemakers, and a caller just wrote in to say, and Joanne was talking to us indeed about fair trade. Caller is saying fair play to Joanne. She's been looking after the county and the environment since I met her. She wants fairness and justice for all. She's also famous for growing her own veg, and please say hello to her from all at Letterkenny Community Gardens, and we're absolutely delighted to do so. And it's always good to know that our guests are practicing what they preach, and there is absolutely no doubt about the fact that that is what's being done by Joanne. Caller says, I'm typing this letter, but I'm not typing it lightly. At this stage, I'm at breaking point. I'm hoping someone can guide me in the right direction. I'm a healthcare nurse and qualified 16 years ago. I work in a nursing home. Since COVID-19 came, the level of care in nursing homes has hit the ground for the worst. Let's say in 2017, the care was 90%, which is good. Nothing is ever 100%. But since COVID-19, this has dropped to 40%. The main reason is that these facilities are understaffed and undermanaged. The nursing home I work in is so understaffed that the staff here are completely exhausted. Pre-COVID, we had relatives and friends in who assisted with residents they were visiting, allowed staff to cater for other residents' needs. This has obviously stopped since COVID. In fact, the situation has got worse. Management don't feel the need to intervene so much when family and friends of residents aren't visiting. I've brought this to the attention of management many times. Caller goes on to say, recently I contacted HICWA. It's an independent authority that exists to improve health and social care services. I've raised my concern with them, but I have remained anonymous. And we know that certainly HICWA have published some nursing home reports quite recently, actually. HICWA did come, but it was announced on the day of their arrival. Prior to them arriving, management asked that all day and night staff be on standby for when HICWA arrived, so it would look like we were fully staffed. The visit is now complete, but like every other time, the nursing home looked a lot better when HICWA were here than it did when they didn't. I know someone that works in the RSA, the Road Safety Authority. I also know 1 or 2 Gardaí. I believe any checkpoints they set up are never announced. I would love to go public with all the information and notes I've taken, but I know for sure my job would be gone. I've seen other people lose their jobs while highlighting such issues. And, our letter writer here, who obviously wants to remain anonymous, says, if my family were older and my mortgage were paid, I would gladly contact Primetime and get them heavily involved and share all the information I have. I'm sure they'd love to get their teeth into this, but again, I fear for my job. I'm at breaking point. I don't know where to go from here. Please, can somebody guide me? And I think this is a genuine call from someone who wants to do the right thing and isn't quite sure how to go about it. And if anyone can offer some perspective on that for our caller, we'd be delighted to hear from you. And finally, before we go to the news headlines, a caller says, does anyone have a contact number for a person who values old coins? And I know is it numinologist or something like that is the name for someone who would be an expert in and would value old coins. But if there's any, it's not numinologist, it's something along those lines. But if anyone values old coins or can put us in the right direction of someone who does, please get in touch. The time on Highland Radio is just 1 minute past 11 o'clock. It's time for the headlines, and we will say a special good morning, and just please bear with me for 2 seconds. I just need to... There we have it. It's time to say good morning to Catherine Gaffney.
Thanks, Donal. Good morning. The Taoiseach says EU sanctions agreed last night will hit Russia hard but won't stop the invasion of Ukraine. Micheal Martin said Ireland favours the strongest possible response and putting Vladimir Putin's name personally on sanction lists. But he said that detail still has to be worked out after an emergency EU summit finished in the early hours of this morning. Almost €400,000 has been allocated to Donegal under the latest round of the Town and Village Renewal Scheme. Churchill, Moville and Newton Cottingham are all set to benefit, while money has also been allocated to a county-wide project to develop a relocation marketing campaign. The funding will go towards enhancing various amenities in the villages in question. Hospital waiting lists will be cut by almost 20% by the end of the year under new government targets. It's expected around 1.5 million people will be added to waiting lists this year because of COVID backlogs. Meanwhile, and as you've been hearing, it's been claimed that Letterkenny University Hospital is the worst funded hospital in the country. It was revealed this week that more than 1,200 diabetic patients were currently awaiting review appointments at the hospital. Paul Gillespie of the Donegal Diabetes Association believes that one of the main problems is mismanagement by the HSE. The Dáil has heard that high house prices in Donegal and a failure by government to address derelict and vacant properties is forcing people into homelessness and to flee the county. That's according to Donegal Deputy Padraig McLaughlin, who was speaking last evening during statements on the town centre first policy. And it's hoped that sporting facilities in Strabane will be upgraded in the near future. A motion was passed at the latest sitting of the Derry City and Strabane District Council calling for floodlights to be installed at the arena pitch in the Melvin Sport Complex and for the transfer of land at Lisnafin playing pitches to the council for further development. That's it for now. We're back with more at 12 noon.
If you've got magic moments or great memories captured on your smartphone, now is a great time to have them printed at mcgees.ie. Simply upload your favourite photos, choose your size and finish, and McGee's will take care of the rest, with the results delivered to your door. Prices are from just 12 cents, and there's also creative options available. Preserve your memories today at mcgees.ie.
Thousands of hectares of land targeted for re-wetting. For more in this week's Farmers' Journal, here's Paul Mooney.
We reveal the EU proposals which could see over 100,000 hectares of farm peatland re-wetted. Ban on one-off rural housing ruled out by Minister. Dairy Group talk cow cap and farmer compensation for tackling climate change. And will you make money from putting solar panels in your sheds?
Plus, how to make the most of spring fertiliser. Only inside this week's Irish Farmers' Journal, on sale now.
At Hickey, Clark and Langan Insurance Brokers, they compare quotes from all the leading insurers, so you get a great price. Home, motor and van, farm, holiday home, travel and liability insurance, they quote them all. So if the worst happens, you're covered. For a competitive insurance quote today, call Hickey, Clark and Langan on 9126688 or pop into their office at Ballymacool, Letterkenny. Hickey, Clark and Langan General Insurances Limited, trading as Hickey, Clark and Langan, is regulated by the Central Bank of Ireland.
At Centra, we're at the heart of the community, so we go to great lengths to help you live your best life. Fresh bread, finest meals, fantastic offers, all the good feels. Not to mention a fabulous wide range of our own brand favourites. And as for off-licence, we've been to the four corners of the world so you can enjoy the best wines and beers locally. At Centra, we've got everything you need. Centra. Live every day. Enjoy it sensibly.
Experience contemporary elegance and style at the newly refurbished Radisson Blu Hotel, Letterkenny. Wine and dine in the Mulberry Restaurant, open daily from 12. Now taking bookings for all those moments missed and upcoming special occasions and events, including birthday parties and anniversaries. Contact the Radisson Blu team today.
You have one new message. Hi Claire, Auntie Dee here. I just wanted to say a big thank you for skipping my party. We had a great night and everyone was so happy you didn't come. Now you take care. I hope to see you soon. Bye.
No one will thank you for turning up to work or anything else when you're sick. Stay at home and get a test to protect yourself and others from COVID-19. From the HSE, for us all.
The 9 till noon show is brought to you by Letterkenny Credit Union, offering low-rate car loans with fast approval. Apply online at letterkennycu.ie or in office today.
This is the 9 till noon show on Highland Radio. It's one of my favourite hours of the week when I get to do this programme, because it's the last hour of the 9 till noon show on a Friday, which means we have two special guests in studio. Good morning, Micheal and Fionnuala.
Hello, Donal.
And I love it when I get the rare chance to have this conversation, because to spend an hour talking about film and TV and all entertainment is
great.
only lovely. But I do want to start with the stage, because Micheal, unlike some people in the room, I did get to go to Dramatures in Untitled Theatre last Sunday.
It wasn't my fault. It's good to know that I have one person in the room, Donal, who supports me through my endeavours. Anyway.
Well, I must say congratulations to yourself, congratulations to Kieran, and congratulations to all of the cast, because it was an excellent show. And, it's really going to push all the right buttons, I think, for adjudicators on the circuit, because, the amount of promotion done now to the amateur dramatics sector is only brilliant. But no, it's a really good show, and it taps into something, I think, as someone that does a bit of theatre work myself on an amateur basis, I think Kieran has tapped beautifully into the psyche of those Egypts among us who go into cold rooms in the dead of winter to rehearse shows to do in the spring, and he really tapped into that beautifully.
He did. It's a love letter to Amdram in all its forms, whether it be pantomimes, musicals, whatever shows, and a love letter to those who, as you say, do it. Those who go into drafty rooms in the middle of November and keep their coats on as they run up pretending to be the Wizard of Oz or whatever.
And also very educational for those people who think that the communards and Jimmy Somerville wrote "Don't Leave Me This Way." Or have I just given away something? I know there was a big discussion.
What a huge twist! Yeah,
oh, yeah.
That's part of one of my scenes. Yeah, that discussion about the communards. Yeah,
yeah, indeed.
Cover version.
And who did the original, Michael?
Harold Melvin and the Blue Notes, 1975.
And which female soul singer also had a hit with it?
Oh goodness! Right, you've got me.
Thelma Houston, Whitney's aunt, Thelma.
Okay.
She had a hit
She also
with it
did a
as well.
cover version of it, yeah.
She did, indeed.
You should have played my character, because you really got the music trivia. I'm just reading it from a script.
But that's the essence of amateur acting.
I have to pretend that I'm knowledgeable of these. That's the acting part, pretending I'm knowledgeable about these things. Yeah. Or anything, I suppose, Fionnuala. Yeah.
Well, I live my life that way.
There you go.
I pretend I'm knowledgeable about things.
That's the...
Michael, it's been a red letter week for you in another way, because after much cajoling from many people, not least our beloved boss here, Fionnuala, you have watched Yellowstone.
I have finally watched Yellowstone.
I know, I saw your post.
Yes, I watched the 2-hour pilot episode on Wednesday night and enjoyed it so much that I moved on to episode 2 last night, and I fully intend to watch episode 3 this evening.
Considering that you watch things on a schedule
I know.
over the course of normally...
Like I'm loving Reacher very much, but I'm deliberately dragging that out every Friday evening.
I watched the whole thing over the weekend.
A lot of people watched all of Reacher on
I
Amazon.
watched the whole Reacher.
I must confess, my family and I binged it. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, most people, my housemate and a few of my mates watched it as well. So yeah, we can chat about that as well. So Yellowstone is basically a 21st century Dallas in many respects, or Falcon Crest. A lot of similarities. You've got a patriarch played by Kevin Costner. He's doing the Larry Hagman role. And he's got a few sons and a daughter, and they've got a massive ranch. And in the 2-hour opening episode, there are 2 bad guys and there are 2 points of conflict. One is stolen horses and one is water and water rights. So it's very much a Western. Yeah. It's very much like an old-time Western. I watch a lot of old Westerns, like How the West Was Won with James Arness from the 70s, and Have Gun Will Travel with Richard Boone from the 1950s. And the same sort of storylines come up. But this is a 21st century spin where you do have showdowns and gunfights, but there's also helicopters flying around while all this is happening. And Costner's character, he carries the show. John Dutton, he is he's the protagonist, if not the hero, because certainly in the first couple of episodes he sets things in motion that are illegal and definitely wrong, but he does what he does to protect his family and to protect his land and the heritage of being on this land for since 1880, for a couple of hundred years or whatever. And that's a big part of the appeal of the show. I think that's why it's such a huge hit around the world. It's massive in America. It already has one spin-off, 1883, with Sam Elliott, and another spin-off, I think it's called 1932, is coming very soon. So this is now a franchise based around Yellowstone. The show is in its 5th season. 1 and 2 are on the Sky Store for download if you wish them. And season 4, the newest one, is on the RTE player for anyone who wishes
No,
to
when
revisit
you
it.
say Sky Store,
you download
do you
it.
mean? Oh, so no, what
You
you
can't
mean
stream it,
is
yeah.
it's the Sky on demand because Sky Store is the one you pay on.
You pay on, yes.
Oh, no,
you
you
pay
have to
for-
pay. You
this
can't
is
get
for
it.
pay.
Yeah,
Yeah,
it
you
is,
can't, because I've been trying to get it, keep thinking it would come up, but it hasn't.
Oh,
come up yet.
right.
Yeah, I'm wondering about that too. We were chatting about that during the week, whether or not, like, if it was on Now TV or something, if it was on another.
It's amazing, and no other channel has picked it up.
No.
Because I would have thought by now, I was thinking, I know RTE did it, which fair play to RTE. They
Yes.
were very quick off the mark.
On the ball with
to
this
have
show,
it,
yeah.
Yeah.
Totally on the ball. But you can't get it on their player either. You know, you
Yeah.
can't backwatch
No,
it, and they're
only
on
season
season 4 now.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But you would have assumed by now that like one of the UK channels would have picked it up,
yeah.
like a TV, the
Yeah.
UTV or Channel 4 or something
Unless
like
Paramount are Paramount coming with are Paramount launching another streaming? Are they coming with?
that. Well, they have their own streaming in America. It's Paramount Plus, so unless
Yes.
they're planning on giving it to
coming
us here. But
So they may be locking down the rights because it's a juicy prospect to hold on to
Yeah.
if they're going to do something over here, possibly, because the brand name is out there now. People know about this show. I don't know, but yeah, it is very surprising that it's very hard to find. It only popped up on the Sky Store in the last couple of weeks.
Oh, it has to be, because I've been constantly looking for it.
Last weekend there was only series 1.
Yeah.
And by Wednesday or Thursday, I was given the link to someone, and I noticed that season 2 had been added in the last few days. So the Sky Store is just adding it. Maybe after a certain period and for download, they'll actually make it available for stream. I don't know.
Yeah, I must check there actually, because the series I'm looking forward to and want to see more than any other at this point in time isn't on any of the streaming services as of yet. It ran on CBS in the US, and that's the latest adaptation of Stephen King's The Stand.
Oh, okay.
Which ranks as absolutely one of my favourite books.
And it's
I
not...
love the book, and I love the first series.
Yeah,
And
there was
they've
an
done a new
adaptation
series,
before, yeah.
A new adaptation now with Whoopi Goldberg playing Mother Abigail, and a couple of other big names as well. And I'm really looking forward to it. But
And
I
it's
haven't
not
been able to find
available
it anywhere yet.
I'm just off the top of my head. I can't think of anything. Just Watch is always a great website for finding out where
Yeah,
things
I
are legal.
must actually go in, because no, it's
and
not on
CBS has an agreement with Sky, so it should show up on Sky, because
Yeah.
a lot of the CBS shows
No,
are
unless
on
Sky
Sky.
Atlantic have plans to show it on their summer autumn schedule.
Oh, so
I-
it won't come
I'd
up.
say
Okay.
that's where it'll end
I
up
don't
coming
think
up,
they've
because
shown
they're-
it on the actual screen yet, so it won't be on their on-demand service. But
okay.
I'm hoping they will. No, look, Michael's been speaking about Yellowstone, which has Kevin Costner, and one of your recommendations has one of the big names of acting, and that's Al Pacino in Hunters.
Yeah, well, to be honest, I don't know if anybody has watched this, because I didn't hear anything about it. But I was on
This is a
Amazon.
couple of years ago, isn't it?
Yeah, it was, the first one was 2020 was when it came out. So obviously it was probably done 2019 or whatever when they made it. It came out 2020. Now I don't know how I missed it, but I was in watching Reacher, which I hadn't been on Amazon for a while. And you know when you kind of get onto a platform, then you start flicking around, and suddenly I found this, and I was like, wow, Al Pacino's in it, and I love a good Nazi hunt. And that's what this is about. And it's also done by Jordan Peele. So I went into it. If Jordan Peele is the
That's Get Out and
yes.
Us, isn't it?
Twilight Zone as well, yeah.
He does all. And to be honest, the Get Out and the Us one, I couldn't watch them because they were too scary. So
They're fantastic. They are brilliant.
It's too scary. I
Yeah,
cannot be
I've
scared
seen
anymore.
Us.
Well,
I know.
but Get Out is even better.
Yeah.
I need to have. I need to be surrounded by teddies and
Aw.
something else to make me feel better to watch one of those anymore. I've lost my nerve when it comes to any of those things. But so I haven't seen those. And then he did the Twilight Zone, and I kind of wasn't particularly into it. So he's done
I
a few
loved
bits
the
and
Twilight
pieces,
Zone.
and I much prefer the more original kind of a way in which it's done. But he's done this, and I have to say I'm absolutely loving it. So it's very loosely based on in the 70s in the late 60s and 70s in America, there was a lot of talk about what happened to Nazis after the war, and there are some people who genuinely went out. They were not police officers, not anything. They were people who either were Jewish people who had been caught up in the horror that was World War II. And there was also then family members and different things like that got together, and they did what they called Nazi hunting. And it was basically that they went through archives. They tried to find people. Where did they go? Look through paper. It was all about a paper trail. This is kind of loosely based on that idea. What you have is a group of people who the majority of them have direct experiences of the war and that they survived it but lost family members. And then you also have this young boy in it who's like, he's 18, 19 in it, and his grandmother had been in Auschwitz, and his experience of it is all, as he keeps saying through it, you know, he looks at it in the same way as he reads a comic book. You know what I mean? What he's learning is all, is detached from it, and he doesn't feel the personal connection to it. Now, obviously, because Jordan Peele is involved in this, it's they're not just finding out who these people are and then calling the authorities.
Okay.
Yeah.
So this isn't like the Simon Wiesenthal story.
No,
you know, this
no.
is a very, very fictionalized.
Oh my God, yeah. Within the first 5 seconds, you're like, oh yeah, okay, he took this. He took this and Jordan Peeled it.
Yeah, okay.
So it's actually really good. Al Pacino is fantastic in it. He's like this very wealthy. He is a Jewish man. He survived the camps. He's now extremely wealthy. He finances it and he kind of spearheads it. The younger man that's in it, his grandmother was part of it as well, and this is what he finds out after she passes away. And it's all about kind of unravels it, and they're trying to find this large group of that they realise that there's a larger group than even they thought of Nazis working and infiltrating the higher echelons of the society, and also in the government and things like
So
that.
is it episodic or is it a serial?
No, it's episodic. It's 8. There's 8 episodes in it. There's supposed to be a second series, but it hasn't come out yet.
Okay.
But I really am enjoying it. It's got a bit of wit. It's got a bit of banter. It has a little bit of violence, but not too much violence. So it just keeps me on the right side of it. Some of the stories that they're telling, which I'm assuming are part of what's based in reality, is stories that it often kind of flashes back to the camps and things that happened to the people, and it's sort of telling you the story about how they were shaped into who they became. Then you have also Lena Olin is the head. Is in it as well, and you have the group of
She was on Alias
Nazis
years
and
ago. She was the mum on Alias back in Jennifer Garner's mum.
She's fantastic, and she's involved with the Nazis. So you're kind of getting all of what's happening on their side and what the plan. So there's a lot of intrigue in it. There's a lot of there's some funny moments in it, and there's a lot of kind of, there's a fighting nun and all that kind of stuff. I know you like a good fighting nun, Michael.
Can't beat a good fighting nun.
And Warrior Nun is coming back for a second season. I found out during the week. Speaking of, I love that show.
Good.
Love that show.
So I have to say I really am enjoying it. It's 8 episodes on it. It's on Amazon. It's been there since 2020. It was lit for a second series, but there's a lot of kind of big names even travelling in and out through it. You'd nearly recognise everybody in it as being people that have been in other stuff. One of the guys from Fringe, remember the Doctor in Fringe?
I love
years
Fringe.
ago? Yeah, he shows up in this along the way. There's lots of those kind of, people that pop up and you're like, oh, okay, I totally...
And he was also in Lord of the Rings, actually. He played Denethor in Lord of the Rings, and I've completely blanked on his name. John.
Yeah.
It's John.
He's also in Cowboy Bebop. He has a major part in the last 2 or 3 episodes of that. He plays a significant character, and he's brilliant. It's not Noble, is it?
No, it is.
Yes.
Noble. John Noble.
He's so straight, kind of, and even when he's being nice to a person, it sounds menacing.
He's a brilliant actor.
He's very
amazing
good.
presence.
But
he's
yeah,
great
so
in
he's
Cowboy Bebop as well.
There's loads of guys. There's loads of people like that you're kind of, oh God, he was. The way that you're sort of the whole way through. So there's a really strong cast.
I would say with Pacino at the centre, people will be queuing up. I know if they'd phoned me,
indeed,
I wouldn't have turned them down.
No, you wouldn't.
Pacino, all right, I'll do it.
No, what you would have done, Mike, you would have done it for free because you're so committed to amateur dramatics. Actually, Fionnuala, before I go for a break, and I'm going to go to a break in just a moment, you say you love a good Nazi hunt. Have you either read or watched Apt Pupil?
Oh yes, I watched it. Yeah,
Pupil, it's one of the stories
the movie,
in different seasons, the Stephen King book.
Yeah,
which must be, when it comes to books, I mean, it must be the most successfully filmed book ever because he wrote 3 novellas, 4 novellas in a book called Different Season, and 3 of which were filmed. 2 of them became absolute all-time classics. There's a film in it. There's a book. There's a story in this book called The Body. It became filmed as Stand By Me.
Yes.
It also has a story called. It's all about a guy who is in prison and he gets a poster of his favourite actor, and the story is called Rita. Hayworth and
Shawshank Redemption.
correct.
Wow.
So it's the same book that has Shawshank Redemption and Stand By Me, the original stories.
I
and
know
the
what you
third
mean
one,
now.
the
Yeah,
other one
that's
is Apt People, it's called. Jeremy Irons was in the film. And
Oh, it's so good.
It is a brilliant film and a brilliant story.
Must check it and see
That all came from
whether
the
it
same
shows up anywhere now on the streaming, because that is definitely
No,
worth
I
a watch
haven't
again.
seen it in years, but I've reread. I
Yeah.
love King. I mean, he's one of my favorite authors. You know.
No, one of the guys. I remember when we were teenagers. One of my friends started reading out loud. Was the book called Rats, or there was full of rats?
No, Rats was James Herbert.
Herbert, yeah.
That's James Herbert. I'd say you're thinking of.
I
There's
read
two
that
books.
too.
Rats
Where
and
they're gone
Domain.
camping and they just get attacked by. Oh yeah, it was just.
That wouldn't be your.
Oh well, King would have had a short story. He's had several short stories about people.
I thought.
camping. Yeah.
I have no idea, but I always thought it was King, and it was like.
It may well have been. I mean,
these
James
teenagers
Herbert
went
wrote a book
camping
called
and then
Rats.
they got
but,
attacked by these flesh-eating
well,
rats. And
camping
and
being attacked.
I'm
I mean,
out.
that's pretty much
Did you not
half
finish
the
it?
adolescent horror films ever made, really, isn't it? You know.
Oh, I know.
We're going to take a short break. Back in a moment.
Hi, Raymond Sweeney here. If your vacuum cleaner has seen better days, call into us at Ben Sweeney Euronics for a look at the new Samsung Turbo Cordless Stickback. This lightweight, easy-to-control vacuum cleaner picks up fine dust on carpets and on hard floors. With a 40-minute battery life and a massive 150 watts of suction power, it is now available for €299. Ben Sweeney Euronics, Port Road, Letterkenny, and the shopping centre, Dunlow.
Ben Sweeney Euronics. We deliver, we install, we care.
Years ago, I used to dread my motor insurance renewal. Then a friend told me about O'Malley Scanlon Insurance in Ballybofey and Dunlow. They do all the hard work. They contact all the major insurance underwriters and they get the very best possible quote for me. They have saved me a small fortune over the years, and they could do the same for you.
When your insurance comes up for renewal, contact O'Malley Scanlon Insurance at their Ballybofey office on 9131020 or their Dunlow office on 952206. O'Malley Scanlon is regulated by the Central Bank. Visit Derry and experience a world of difference just over the border. See the historic walls, the waterfront, and the famous chill-off licences at Da Vinci, White House, Coolmore, Hatmore and Chantallo, which, for some reason, have suddenly become the #1 attraction. So visit Derry and leave with more than just memories. Please drink responsibly. See drinkaware.ie.
Open your future by attending the Northwest Regional College Open Day. This is your opportunity to visit your local campus, to tour the fabulous facilities, sample the NWRC experience and apply for your course. Running from 12 noon each day, beginning 1st of March, Strabane campus, 2nd of March, Strand Road and Springtown campuses, and 3rd of March, Limavady and Greystone campuses. Register to attend today to win a high-spec laptop. Northwest Regional College Open Day. This is your future.
Thinking of North America? Aer Lingus from Donegal Airport is the way to go, with great fares and onward connections across North America. You'll fly via Dublin, where you'll pre-clear customs, saving you time on arrival. See airlingus.com. Offer subject to conditions and availability.
Highland Radio Time Checks, brought to you by Letterkenny Shopping Centre, the centre of shopping in Donegal. Free parking and shopping all under one roof. Letterkenny Shopping Centre, bringing you the time at...
Time on Highland Radio is 24 minutes past 11. In studio with me is Fionnuala Rabbit, who's the CEO of Highland Radio and a veritable expert when it comes to all things screen and paper, and Michael Leddy, writer and broadcaster and leading amateur dramatic actor.
We never get this kind of respect when Greg is here.
I know. Oh, this is Greg should be taking notes. This is what I want to be. I want this said every week.
Because the day is going to come when he's going to move into direction, and I'm going to be looking for parts. So I'm just sowing the seeds.
Dull Kavanagh, he'd be great as the little orphan Annie character. I could see that happening.
You can totally pull it off.
Yeah, totally.
No. I've been in Annie twice. I played the President first time, and I played Drake the Butler the second time. So there you have. There's another.
Take a note of that.
Michael,
yes.
You have looked at a couple of other things as well.
Yes,
Power of the Dog.
Power
on
of the
Netflix.
Dog. Yeah, this is one of those Oscar contenders, and I remember. Fionnuala is smiling here, and I know why Fionnuala is smiling. So anyway, I want to try and watch the Oscar movies. I've enjoyed The Lost Daughter, and I want to see them all in Nightmare Alley and Licorice Pizza. Although they're not streaming, they're not streaming. Fionnuala said that I would love this movie. She said I would love it. Now, I sat and watched it the other night, and for the first hour, I thought, ha, Fionnuala's wrong. She's wrong.
No, she's not.
But then in the second hour, as things started to click, I thought, I really, really enjoyed this movie.
I knew
it. A lot.
The whole time I was watching it, I was like, Michael would love
this movie. So it is Montana 1925. There are 4 characters in this. There are 2 brothers. Jesse Plemons, who I love from Friday Night Lights, such a great actor, also in Breaking Bad, love that guy. And Benedict Cumberbatch, and they are brothers. They're ranchers, land cattlemen, and one of them is very genteel, a very nice gentleman about town, but the Benedict Cumberbatch character is a jerk. He's mean to everybody, and he's sour. He's got a sour disposition, and he just kind of ruins the life of everyone around him. Into their story comes a widow and her teenage son, late teen, early 20s. And the nice brother falls in love with her, and by the time you're 20 minutes into the movie, they're married and she has moved to the ranch house. So those 4 characters form the hub of the story for the whole 2 hours. And not a lot happens. It's one of those movies where nothing happens, which I tend to like, as Fionnuala knows. It's usually, and because the Benedict Cumberbatch character is such a jackass, he kind of creates a tone over the house that kind of, just makes it sour for everybody. There's a lot of people standing at the window looking miserable, standing in the fields looking miserable.
It's a play in the cinema, basically.
Sitting at the piano, not playing the piano, looking miserable. A lot of that goes on. And it's a deliberately and deliciously unpleasant viewing experience watching these people, this suffering that's under the surface the whole way through, because it's all the one guy's fault, really. So it builds and builds and builds, and by the time you get to the end of it, as I sat there watching the closing credits, you'll be thinking about what happened in the movie, but I definitely thought, that was worth it. It was worth it, those 2 hours. Now, Fionnuala...
No, I enjoyed it. I did. I wouldn't say I didn't enjoy it, but I 100% was like, oh my God, this is totally Michael's bag. The whole time I was watching. It's a little bit slow for me. I
Very
like
slow,
things maybe, and it is a little bit slow, and it has that kind of a feel to it. But I did like the fact that Benedict Cumberbatch is kind of the, whatever they call it, the sort of a nasty presence that's over.
Yes.
And you do kind of, if you're watching closely, you do get an insight. You need to it's one of these movies that you need to watch because there's little subtleties happening in conversation and even in movement and little things that they're doing that
become relevant.
It all becomes relevant, but it also gives you a deeper insight into the characters. They don't have a conversation to explain, I had a bad childhood, or I had this, or I had
it's
whatever.
All subtext,
but it's all kind of within. You hear it's like just tiny little things that are going on between them, which is very beautifully done. And I thought that Kirsten Dunst, she and Jesse Simmons played very well
Fabulous
against each
together.
other, and they're a couple in real life, which was amazing because you think that would be more difficult to have. That
but
type
they
of
have great chemistry on camera.
They definitely had great chemistry on camera, and the son was just the right side of odd. But
he's a deliberately weird kind of look to him with his eyes and stuff like that. It's very
you definitely, it's not one that you want to watch when you're on your phone.
Yeah, see, from the way you're talking, I must confess, this sounds to me like one of these films that you watch more out of admiration for the craft of how the film was made, more than, this is really touching me on any sort of an emotional level, or this is interesting me. I'm not interested in the film. I'm interested in admiring the craft that went into making it.
Completely concur, yeah.
And I have to say, crafted. I mean, I would
totally
have to
win.
Yeah, I would have to say, it's got Oscar written all over it. But to my mind, I must be honest, I think the next film I see starring Benedict Cumberbatch is going to have the words Doctor and Strange in the title.
I can see why that would be,
Totally.
But he's such a great performer. He's magnetic on screen, and he's one of those performers who can play a jackass, but you still sort of have empathy for him, even though he's being horrible to everybody on screen.
Yeah.
His charisma is such that you're like, I think a lesser actor in that part might, you'd be like, well, why should I care? But I was fascinated by his behaviour.
His accent was a little bit. I didn't like his
Well,
accent.
his accents can be a little bit. I mean, once you take him out of sort of slightly posh English, he gets a bit. He does lose. Now, I mean, I love Benedict Cumberbatch, and I've loved him for a long, long time. But I'm slightly, I won't say I'm unique because, I'm sure other people share this, but my absolute favourite role done by Benedict Cumberbatch was not in a film. It was not. It was not even on TV.
I know what it is.
No,
I know what it is. It's the radio thing.
You are right.
Which I have not.
It is. He and a number of others were involved in a BBC produced radio drama series comedy called Cabin Pressure, in which he's the second officer on board this plane that does chartered flights out of a small airport outside London. It is deliciously brilliant.
There's about 4 seasons, isn't there?
There's 2 seasons. No, there's 2 full seasons. And the wonderful thing is, there's 2 seasons, and it has a beginning, a middle, and an end, and it does have a conclusion. And it is phenomenal. It is brilliant. It's called Cabin Pressure, and I would recommend it to anyone. I have the whole series on CD actually, but
must check and see.
I was turned on to it. I was turned on to it by a Dutch friend of mine called Inika.
Yeah, who mentioned it to me also. Yeah,
and Inika gave it. I mean, I said, I must track that. I went on to SoundCloud, got the first 2 episodes. 10 minutes into the first episode, I was utterly hooked. And it is just brilliant. So if anyone can come across it, Cabin Pressure. It's a BBC produced comedy, and it is magnificent.
I need to check it out, because I think the conversation that I had with that same lady, there's another, I love some of those BBC things, and there's one called, I don't know if you're aware of it, Revolting People, which is about the American War of Independence, fighting back against their revolting people.
Oh, right.
And it's a witty comedy by a guy called Jay Tarsus, who did a lot of NBC sitcoms in the 80s and 90s, like Slap Maxwell and Molly Dodd. He eventually found his way to BBC, and it's one of the wittiest, funniest things you'd ever see. There's a lot of really great sitcom stuff, and I keep waiting for these things to be adapted for TV, because they'd be perfect for TV.
And I do not want Cabin Pressure adapted. I have to be honest, I don't think I want it adapted. And part of the reason is I have visions in my own head of Gertie. Now, Gertie is the name of the plane. I have visions in my head of what Gertie looks like. I have visions in my head of the characters, even though I know the actors, because they're
yes,
and I can't remember the other actors, but I mean, they are well-known actors that are playing the various parts.
Yourself.
But I have a visual thing in my head, and I don't want it adapted, because I'm afraid if they adapt it, it will be cheapened in the process. I don't want that to happen.
Ruin it for you. It'll definitely ruin. They never managed to, do it the same, but and that is one of the beauty of radio. But I must check and see if it's on, because they've gone a huge amount of stuff now. BBC
Sounds. They have the BBC Sounds app, and there's some really good stuff on that.
Have a look,
and there may be something on their podcasts and that. So I have to kind of trawl through.
It is magnificent.
Because I love Benedict Cumberbatch is a fantastic actor. Like, he's been in some amazing stuff. But and in this, I mean, if this gets it's the easiest to watch of its kind of movie. You know the way it's in. They like that kind of genre. You often see it. Like, do you remember the Your Man with the Bear?
The Revenant. The Revenant.
The Revenant.
Revenant.
Yeah. I mean, please.
Man with the Bear.
And
the Oscar goes to
the Man with the Bear. I know. I was complimenting it by calling it the Man with the Bear. But, like, there's many
like that. The bear.
Like, even speaking of Kevin Costner, do you remember when he went for Dances with Wolves?
Yeah.
Yes.
I mean, the movie one. It took me 4 times to watch that movie to the end. I kept falling asleep midway and having to start again. It's like, oh my God, it's
I
such
hope this
a
wasn't
long
in the cinema. Did you, were you dozing off in the cinema?
Yeah.
No, it was outright. But you're just, it's, so, like, they do go for that kind of a thing. But this movie, it is quite touching in places. And like I said, if you watch it, put your phone away, you know what I mean, and give it your full attention.
Well, I always give it my full attention, irrespective of whether it's...
my phone's in the other room. I wouldn't dare.
No,
it's got loads of drone footage.
You never have your phone anyway.
Yeah, I never have my phone anyway.
I think most of your friends don't think you have a phone.
Yeah,
because
absolutely. The phone is always in the drawer in the bedroom. I check it before I go to bed. But yeah, there's loads of drone footage on the mountains, and it's part of...
It's beautiful.
And it isn't just done for the sake of doing it. It heightens the loneliness and the isolation that these 4 characters are feeling in different ways. You could say that the Jesse Plemons character maybe resolves his to some degree because he gets married, but the marriage isn't a happy one.
Can I ask you one question?
Yeah.
Did you care about them?
That's coming back to what you said, and in terms of an emotional connection, if I'm honest, I'm completely agreeing with you. No, I didn't form an emotional. It didn't get to me. Almost, it didn't. It just didn't. I was fascinated by what happened. And when it was over, I want to see it again. Now that I know how it's going to end. And a few people on Letterboxd, which I always check for reviews now, it's the social media for film fans.
So do I, normally yours.
It's great, but thank you. They say that a lot of people said, now that I've seen it, I want to see it again, because you know better what's going on.
I could totally
But you're absolutely right, Donald. No, I didn't have tears in my eyes. It wasn't anything like that. I was like, that's a really fascinating story.
Yeah.
So it worked on an intellectual level more than an emotional level. Which is like Nomadland, which did very well last year. Nomadland, which I thoroughly enjoyed. And she went on to do Eternals and did the same thing. intellectual exercise, but not an emotional one. I wasn't emotionally connected with that main character in Nomadland, but I would rave about the film and say I thoroughly enjoyed it. But you would think, given the story and given the subject matter, that you might be a bit caught up, especially when that lady goes back to her old home and so forth. But no, it wasn't that kind of film, and neither is this.
Yeah. Right, we're going to take a short break, and after the break we're going to perhaps answer a question that some people may have been asking themselves, because we might have been, shall we say, slightly obliquely confusing a few people over the course of the past couple of days in our advertising. The answers are coming after these.
The 9 till noon show with Letterkenny Credit Union, now offering mortgages from 40,000 to 600,000 euro with no hidden fees or transaction charges. Letterkenny Credit Union, 9102127.
Does your home need a fresh coat for a fresh start? Foy & Company in Ballybuffet and Letterkenny stock all the leading paint brands and wallpapers, all available for nationwide delivery. Let the Foy & Company team help you create the perfect colour scheme for your home and lifestyle, guiding you through the process of selecting the right paint for your indoor or outdoor space. Book your free online or in-store colour consultation today at foys.ie. Foy & Company in Ballybuffet and Letterkenny.
The good times are back. The highly acclaimed Joe Dolan show, Remembering Joe, is back in Letterkenny for one night only. And what a party it will be. St. Patrick's Night, Thursday, March 17th, eve of the bank holiday at the Clanry Hotel. The spectacular show starring brother Ben Dolan, nephews Adrian and Ray, niece Sandra, Karen Carroll, plus the original Joe Dolan band will have you rocking and rolling in the aisles at the Clanry. Celebrate our national holiday in style. Tickets now available at the Clanry Hotel, 07491243369. Remember, there's no show like a Joe show. Always a sellout. Book now.
On this week's Business Matters, I'll be joined by Bundoran hotelier Brian McAnuff. So join me, Kieran O'Donnell, for Business Matters on Sunday evening after the 6 o'clock news. The Business Matters podcast is also available to download at highlandradio.com.
Business Matters in association with Letterkenny IT's Faculty of Business. Applications are now open for the highly regarded Masters in Leadership and Innovation in the public sector. Also a Masters in Governance, Compliance and Data Protection in Financial Services. And a certificate in Online Dispute Management. Visit lyit.ie for more information. It's exciting times at Hillside DMAX in Letterkenny because they're moving, but not too far. This Monday the 28th, their new kitchen design studio will open at Curralees on the other side of the mountaintop roundabout. The studio will showcase the latest kitchen, wardrobe and slide robe designs with DMAX's renowned attention to detail and exceptional quality. Hillside DMAX, in the heart of your home since 1994. At Curralees, Mountaintop, Letterkenny, from Monday the 28th.
Workwear at Borderland Muff. Waterproof jackets, trousers and footwear at Borderland Muff. Men's, ladies and children's fashions at Borderland Muff. For wetsuits and workwear. For fashion and waterproofs, visit borderlandmuff.ie. Open 7 days. Borderland Muff.
The 9 till noon show is brought to you by Letterkenny Credit Union, with monster loans available up to 60,000 euro for all occasions. Visit letterkennycu.ie.
And you're listening to the 9 till noon show on Highland Radio. It's Donald Kavanagh on the programme this morning. Now, if you've been listening to our ad breaks, as I'm sure you have over the past number of days, you may have come across a suggestion that you might like a holiday, but very little information about how you might go about procuring said holiday. Well, we may be able to answer a few questions now, because I'm joined in studio. Fionnuala is still here, of course. Michael has gone out for a coffee, and we're joined by Sean Quinn, who's the sales manager here on Highland Radio. Sean, good morning.
Morning, Donald.
Great to see you as always. Now, this holiday that we've been obliquely hinting about on our advertising, it's time to come clean. I know lots of people are going to be thinking, whoa, I see one of these big Highland raffles on the offing. And I strongly suspect if that's what people have been thinking absolutely correctly.
Did we give it away, Donald, did we?
Yeah. It's. I'm not saying it's predictable, but I think now it was quite clear that something big is in the offing, and I think it's just time to explain how big this is.
And it is very big. So I'll leave it to Fionnuala to introduce what we're doing.
Well, we picked a great week for it in the sense that it's freezing. So what else would you be thinking about this week? Only when am I going to get a bit of heat and get a bit of sun? So we are delighted that we have teamed up with Atlantic Travel. I'm terrible with names, apologies. That we have teamed up with Atlantic Travel to bring you this fantastic draw. The draw is for 10,000 euro holiday. Holiday of a lifetime worth 10,000 euro plus 5,000 euros cash. To spend as you will on your holidays. So, I mean, just even thinking about that, all of the different destinations come into mind of all the places you wanted to go and travel around and go on safari in Africa, or go on a massive posh skiing holiday in Gdansk, or go over to see Japan. I've always wanted to go to Japan or China or any of those places. So there's loads of different places that you can go. The draw is launched from today. It's €10 for the ticket, and there's a question that you have to answer, which is all on the website. You check out highlandradio.com and that'll direct you to where the details of the draw is. As we've done with previous draws, the tickets are €10 each, 6 for 50 and 10 for 80. But then we have an added bonus, which I'll leave Sean to do because he has all the details of it. We've an added bonus that we've thrown in this time round.
We have, and we've teamed up with Someway Holidays. So if you buy a ticket between today, as it's launched, and the 15th of March, on the 16th of March on this show, we'll actually draw out a prize for somebody and two people actually who will go on a holiday, a lovely holiday to Turkey, Kusadasi, and that's for October of this year. So it's a kind of a little draw before the big draw. So if you buy a ticket online at highlandradio.com, up from today until the 15th of March, you'll be in the draw in association with Someway Holidays. Fantastic. I've seen the images of the hotel. It looks lovely.
And the closing date, as you said, for the main draw is Wednesday, the 13th of April, with the draw to be done the following day.
Yeah, so everybody will get back.
Greg, yeah.
Everybody that's in the draw for Turkey then goes back into the draw, and we continue running it then until the 13th of April. Thursday the 13th of April is when we'll have the big draw then on this show to announce the winner of that fantastic prize. I can every time I mention it, even to family members, I keep telling everybody we've a wedding in our house this year, and she keeps giving out to me why she can't win it so that she can just go on her honeymoon of a lifetime. It's just the amount that you could do with it is just phenomenal. I think there's very few places in the world that you wouldn't be able to go and see for that kind of money.
And I think the whole idea behind this is it's your dream. You can go where you want, and we spoke to Atlantic Travel to get an idea of where it could take you. And it really can take you anywhere. Now, if you decide to have the most amazing experience for 3 or 4 weeks, or if it's city breaks, if you decide to have 5 or 6 different city breaks, that's entirely.
So effectively, you have €10,000 credit with Atlantic Travel, and you can take it all in one big holiday of a lifetime. Or, as you say, you can say, right, we're going to do a family holiday every year for the next 5 years.
Exactly. It's there for you to do whatever you want to do. Now, obviously, we'll give you the cash to go on your first holiday. That's entirely up to yourself. But you choose anywhere in the world, wherever you want to go, courtesy of Highland Radio. We are going to make dreams come true.
I'm going to put my job on the line here and make a prediction, because I know the two of you at this stage, and I know the two of you just do not know when to stop. And I would be very surprised if at some time between the 16th of March and the 14th of April, you don't start getting ideas and chucking even more goodies into the bag. I mean,
I'm determined that we will not be doing that this time around, but sure,
I'd love to, but she won't let me.
Come on, surely to God, a €10,000 holiday worth €10,000 plus €5,000 cash. I'm always like, oh my God. And the possibility of also being in for the draw for Turkey. But you know me, I'm easily persuaded, so we'll see.
What I know the way the two of you operate. I know the way you operate, and I know there's you love chucking in your sweeteners with a couple of days to go. And I would say to people, look, I mean, if you're going to buy a ticket, there's no point in waiting for it. But I mean, buy your tickets and get in there. I mean, that Turkey holiday absolutely is a nice one as well. But Sean, Fionnuala, thanks very much indeed. It's a big one, and you'll be hearing a lot more about this obviously on the course of the programming during the day and during the weeks to come. And I know that Sarah's been doing some video promos as well, so this is going to be all over your social media as well, folks. And all I can say in advance of the big social media campaign is sorry.
This Saturday night, Highland will bring you live coverage of Donegal against Tyrone in Division 1 of the National Football League. Donegal will be hoping to bounce back after their defeat in Kerry as they clash with neighbours and All-Ireland champions Tyrone. Join the Highland team from 7:15 for the build-up and full match commentary. Highland's coverage of Donegal action in the National Football League is brought to you by Highland Motors Letterkenny, main Renault dealer in Donegal, stocking the new Arcana E-Tech Hybrid, voted the medium crossover SUV of the year for 2022 at the Irish Car of the Year Awards.
With the onset of different variants of coronavirus, it is vital that your business, office or school has the most up-to-date air purification device. McDade's Bathroom Plumbing Tiles introduce the Daikin Air Purifier. It eliminates 99.9% of coronaviruses in under 3 minutes. Ideal for residential settings, offices, classrooms and waiting rooms. Priced at €495, it's a great investment. For more details, contact McDade's Bathroom Plumbing Tiles Buncrana. We're only a phone call or email away.
I used to play football here when I was a schoolgirl. Now I'm here coaching the next generation. Being a Garda means thinking quickly, being active and loving the excitement of not knowing what's around the corner. But it also means working as part of a team, guiding young people and helping keep people safe. You'll have plenty of skills that could help you be a Garda. You might not know what they are yet, but they're there. Apply to join as a Garda trainee by the 16th of March at publicjobs.ie. On Garda Síochána, the difference is you.
At your local Centra, we have great offers, like Centra's strip loin steak 360 gram, only €6. For Pancake Tuesday, selected Odlums, Home Cook, Rouse and Nutella products, any 2 for €4. And Canto Novo Pinot Grigio, half price now $7.99. Centra, live every day. Please drink sensibly.
Highland Radio weather updates with Ireland West Airport. Discover Edinburgh this summer with Ryanair's 3 times weekly service. Stunning architecture, endless winding streets and an awe-inspiring castle. Ireland West Airport. You're flying.
And the weather forecast is it'll be cloudy with patches of drizzle in Donegal. A rather mild afternoon with 7 to 9 degrees Celsius temperatures, mostly light to moderate southwesterly breezes, but fresh to strong southerly winds will develop in the west later. Tonight, cloudy and overcast, patchy light rain and drizzle, mainly in western parts with lowest overnight temperatures 4 to 7. Strong southerly winds will develop, so at least it won't be too slippery in the morning. Saturday, mostly cloudy and windy with patchy rain and drizzle, good dry spells, but there'll be more in the east of the region, a few brighter spells there as well. Highest temperatures tomorrow 9 to 11, strong and gusty southerly winds reaching gale force by the coast. Just a couple of comments that have been coming into us. Watch Downfall, the case against Boeing on Netflix. It tells the story of the 2 Boeing 737 MAX planes crashing, including lead up to and cover-ups, etc. Very interesting but frightening. Caller says, and I thought for a minute this says I got season 13 of Yellowstone. I got seasons 1 to 3 of Yellowstone on DVD and binged watch it over 2 weekends. It gets better every season. And caller says, I read different seasons last year. It was brilliant. First time I've ever read Stephen King. And if you're only getting into Stephen King, I can tell you, caller, you have an absolute treat in store because the man is a phenomenal writer. Absolutely
storyteller, I agree.
He is brilliant. Now, I want to go back to yourself, Nuala. You have down on your list Space Force on Netflix. And I see by the look at Michael, he's watched this one as well.
I gave up on this.
Oh, you gave up on it?
I know it came back for season 2. I watched 3 episodes and I couldn't take any more.
It popped up on Netflix and I was like, I don't think I liked that. You know the way, as in when you're sort of thinking, it wasn't very memorable because I was really looking forward to it. And I was looking forward to so much and I was like, well, Steve Carell's in it and the actress that plays Phoebe Buffay from Friends is in it. Lisa Kudrow, there you go, useless with names. And there's loads of people, loads of actors that pop in. John Malkovich is in it. Isn't that?
Yes.
Yeah, John Malkovich is in it. And I was like, oh my God, this is going to be amazing. Amazing. And, when it came out, it was right in the midst of all the kind of chat about there being this new American branch of the government Space Force. And I was like, oh, this is going to open itself up to be hilarious. And I was disappointed in it. But now I've actually, when the second season came on, I was like, because I had no definitive thoughts in my head as to how I felt about it. I said, sure, I'll just give it a try and just see what I think about it. And actually, I'm enjoying this season. And I think that I built it up too much in my head and I expected too much for it. Now, is it an amazing TV program? No, it is not. Is it something that you can sit down and watch for half an hour? That's, you don't have to have the brain switched on for it, as a lot of these kind of comedy things are. There's some great funny one-liners in it. There's some really strong characters in it. There is some great actors in it. Anybody who saw it last year, it's Steve Carell's character is after taking over. He's the general, and whereas he's surrounded by different levels of idiot, I think is probably the best way to phrase it. They're all a bit crazy. His wife is Lisa Kudrow. She's in jail. And so she only appears on like a Zoom screen or that kind of a thing. She's always at a tablet talking over their shoulder or on the phone when they engage her in anything. He's now rearing his daughter alone. And it's just, there's a lot of kind of silly, it's a very silly sort of a thing. You know what I mean? You don't want to be going into this thinking, oh, I'm going to get, you know, a real smart, fast-moving talking comedy. But it's very silly. But actually, amazingly enough, I think now that I wasn't expecting much from it, I'm actually enjoyed it. And I did have one or two laughs out loud. There's 7 episodes in the series. And it's definitely worth giving a check out. If you're just looking for something that's kind of easy, you know, half hour, switch the head off before you head to bed type of thing. That's where I'd kind of put it into that sort of space.
I'm not convinced.
Give it probably like maybe 5.5, 6, that kind of thing.
Well, that's
you
a
know
fair
what I mean?
number.
It's well worth watching. Like it's not that like, oh my God, you're missing out. But
you can see loads of other people who've been in better shows.
Right.
Yeah, but it's hard to find a good comedy now. This is the problem. There hasn't been a new good half-hour comedy, a new one that's come out. I find myself going back watching old ones now on the streaming channels.
Well, it's funny you say that because I actually, my better half and I, the two of us, started watching one that I was aware of and just never got around to watching, and it's Code 404. And we binged the first series of that there over the course of the past week or so.
What do you think?
I loved it.
It's great, isn't it?
I absolutely loved it.
So funny, yeah. It's a Sky production. And it's a cop who's brought back, and he's cybernetically enhanced, but he's useless.
Yeah, but it's funny. It's sort of it gets kind of a bit, you know, it does get serious in places in terms of relationships and things as well. So it's got farcical elements to it, certainly. But there's also there's very interesting personal relationship and ethical questions being raised in this as well.
There is.
And the fact that they're raising personal relationship and ethical questions in the course of what is a farcical slapstick comedy. It's very deftly done.
It's done.
I really like the way they're doing it.
The writer who is doing the comedy is obviously well versed in science fiction and knows that science fiction is a great tool for raising these issues. I agree with you. In season 2 in particular, there was a couple of episodes that played more as thoughtful action drama than comedy.
And one of the things I absolutely love is it's set in London in the sort of the near future. So it's set in, I can't recall that it actually give a specific year, but it's obviously set
I don't think so.
No. I would say probably around about 2030, maybe 2035.
Just
that
slightly,
sort of.
And slightly ahead.
The way they've done it is they've sort of taken they've taken aerial photographs of the city of London and enhanced them and really done a nice job in, giving it, so it's recognisably the city of London, but it's
not
also
today.
really enhanced. And the Shard is there, but the Shard is no longer the tallest building in London. It's really well done. I really like it. You've listed something as well, Fionnuala, that I find fascinating because it's not the sort of thing I would be in any way, shape or form inclined to watch, but my beloved loves it, and it's Room to Improve.
Yeah, well, have you watched it?
I'm aware of it.
Yeah, it's on with Dermot Brendan on RTE, and I put it down because I normally don't watch those kind of things. I'm very much a more flog it, cash in the attic. That's my kind of, if I'm going to be watching that kind of a people getting involved show and stuff. But this Room to Improve, I just happened that I was down in Galway and it was on, and I sat down and watched it, and it's just back. It started back last Sunday. But what I find interesting about this one, and I think it will be more interesting going forward, is if anybody knows Dermot Bannon, if you tell Dermot Bannon that you have €1,000 to spend, Dermot Bannon will come back and tell you really need to find 1,500 because that will be how this will be fabulous. But this now, and he does do a fabulous, like it will be fabulous, you know what I mean? But like, you're not going to be putting down, clay tile when marble would do equally well if you threw another few pound at it. That had been previous ones that I'd watched, that had kind of been the thing, they went over budget, they did whatever. Given the current climate, and this is set in the current climate, so it was kind of, I'd say they started filming it last year, and it's some of the stuff that they'd started in 2020, that everything, like the first show that they did, they had a couple who had, in 2019, they had spoken to him about getting their plans and getting everything to, and what they were going to do and how much money they had and the whole thing. All of a sudden then 2020 came along. They were still trying to work out their planning permission. Then everything shut down. That threw the whole thing off. And it ended up, it wasn't until the end of last year that they actually finally managed to get this house built. At which time, if anybody knows anything about builders, prices have just rocketed. So it was really, I found that really interesting, which was to see them with the budget that they had set up on X amount of money, suddenly having to, that the couple no longer had quite that amount of money. And then all of a sudden you had to say, well, look at, what we were buying, we were putting on this roof, and that roof was going to cost 5,000, and now that roof is 15,000. And this is the kind of thing. And so it's a lot of kind of interaction like that. How can you change it? How can you come in under budget? And it does talk to the people themselves and the work that they do to come in under budget. So I found it much more interesting now than I even had when everything was going smoothly. You know what I mean?
Of course, yeah.
So it was well worth I really enjoyed the first one, and so I will definitely be sitting down for an hour of Dermot and his crew to see how the houses turn out. It's nice because it's set in Ireland, the houses are regular. You know the way as in sometimes you see some of these houses on other channels, and either they're tiny, and you're like, who would live in it? Or they're massive, like mansions, and you're like, okay, let's go with. But they do 2 ups and 2 downs, and the one they did last week was built on actually half of a garden. The people had sold, they had a large garden in their estate in Malahide, I think it was, and they sold the house with part of the garden, and then they kept the rest of the garden, and they built on that.
Right.
So it was it was interesting to see and interesting to see them come in.
And I think there's one down around Ballyshannon, Bundoran coming up, if I recall. Actually, I seem to recall hearing there is one in Donegal in this series. I think it's down around, maybe on the Bundoran Leitrim border, down that general direction. Guys, time's caught us. For some reason, as I always say, the Friday 9 to noon show goes faster than any other 9 to noon show, and that's no small part down to yourselves. Micheal, Eddie and Fionnuala Rabbit, thank you very much indeed. Thanks to all of the contributors to the programme today. Thanks to Mary, to Grania and to Declan that were our Friday panel earlier. Caroline Orr produced and held my hand as she always does and did a fantastic job. And most importantly, thank you to you for listening. John Breslin is up next around the Northwest. But for myself, Donald Kavanagh, good afternoon.
Love swimming? Love it with a level head. Learn about weather, tides and rip currents. Be visible with a brightly coloured hat and tow float. Swim parallel to shore and